I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started, just in case you weren't able to hear us talk about this 2 weeks ago, we have, as a school committee, made the choice to go paperless, more or less. We had stacks of things being delivered to our homes on the week prior. So instead, we have gone paperless. These small little computers that you see are actually middle school computers that the technology people are setting up for us. We did not purchase them for school committee, just to make that very clear. We're a little bit of getting used to here on doing things this way, but we're getting there. So before we get started, are there any comments and statements from the public?
Melissa Pacheco. As you're going through the meeting, if there's a question that arises to a specific topic, am I able to, or is people from the audience able to get up and ask? Because I noticed that on the agenda it says the beginning and the end, but is it limited to that?
If you have a question on what we're discussing, you can come to the mic and we can choose to or not. More than likely, I have no problem hearing you as long as anybody else doesn't have an issue. So I mean, generally we do like to hear input from people, so if you have a question, waiting till the end sometimes is counterproductive.
Right.
If it's on an item that we're actually discussing. So you can come to the mic, and as long as things are going well, then we can address you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Moving on to the informational agenda, and I'm so happy to see you here, Danny. Come on up. Student Rep Danny Marks, who I think is now the school president as well. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And has had a couple of birthdays since we saw him last.
Oh, there's a dig for you.
Look at that. Well, hello. It's nice being back. Nice to see you all again. It's quite lengthy because I haven't been here the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to go through it fairly quickly so I don't take too long. So the school year has been a great one so far, and we're getting a lot of participation from the students, so we're glad to announce that. Some of the past events that have happened, we've had a Six Flags field trip / fundraiser. It was a junior / senior fundraiser. It was very successful, and both the kids and the staff had a lot of fun. And then that was pretty much all that's really happened so far that's major. But the seniors right now, they're working. We're working with the sweatshirt committee to design some of the senior sweatshirts. As you know, I think most of you purchased them actually, right? If I'm not mistaken. So we met today and we agreed on the final design. The original charge is going to be $38, but the class is going to swallow $3, and we're going to make just the price $35 instead. Whoever orders a sweatshirt gets a free cap and gown, and vice versa. If you order the cap and gown, you get the free sweatshirt. It's pretty much a done deal. Also, the seniors are working on having a calendar fundraiser, which is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. They've had it in the past. It's basically you get donations and gift cards from different businesses, and it's like a raffle, and then every day of the month you have a raffle and you give a prize away. The juniors are working on some fundraisers. Nothing publicized by the student council yet, nothing that's gone through. The sophomores want to bring the Harlem Wizards back. That's all they know pretty much, and freshmen, no word. Yeah, I've been trying to work on getting some freshmen involved, and it's an ongoing battle, as usual. The student council, we are trying to improve the school store as years prior to us, but Mondays we're going to be doing stock and inventory and advertisement, and Tuesdays we'll be selling our stock, which is going to be all during lunches. We're going to do this. We worked out a schedule so that way not one person gets stuck doing it every week and So we worked out a schedule. It's been tough trying to organize, getting things for school store and organizing events for the school, considering that we have a lack of financial reports. I don't know where that comes from, but I know I've met with Ms. Tudor multiple times, and she said she's trying to get them. She said she's waiting on someone for a financial report. But it's been tough trying to balance that because it's only on Tuesdays we can go to her about financial things. So it's been kind of tough because we really are in the dark where we are with finances. So we can't really throw much things, do many events, because we don't know what we have. But moving on, we're planning Spirit Week also. We're going to go through those days, and I'm going to sit down with Ms. Tudelo and try and get some of those approved. The Halloween, we're going to have a Halloween dance on October 19th from 7 to 10. Things kind of got switched around today, actually, because I guess they found out that there's going to be a crafts fair on October 19th in the cafeteria, and I guess they weren't aware about that, so I guess they're going to try and work it out so that way they can do it after the volleyball, because they said the volleyball gets around 5:30, so maybe we can use the gym 7. Obviously, the usual stuff, no masks or weapons, violence advocated, costumes allowed, the regular school things. Wow, I have no idea where I went. Oh, there we go. On the day of homecoming, we're going to have a small assembly to honor the fall sports. A quick 45-minute assembly. We're going to call the fall sports on stage, just kind of raise school spirit, considering that the homecoming dance is supposed to be to raise school spirit. So we're going to be trying to do that. We have some joint fundraisers. We have a haunted hallway that we're going to try and do with the class of 2013 and 2014, which is going to be like the elementary. I don't know if you guys have ever been to a haunted hallway. We haven't done one in a while, so we're going to try and get that organized. We have the cookie dough and cheesecake fundraiser, which is pretty much for the whole school, and the homecoming, which is also a fundraiser for the whole school. Homecoming, November 5th. It's going to be at White's, $25. We're anticipating a very good dance and turnout. We kind of changed it around. We're going to have a nacho, soda, and sundae bar. So pretty much all you can eat. We're pretty excited. At the dance, at the end of the dance, each student is going to receive a Domino's pizza card, which is sponsored by the seniors. Basically, it's a little card, and it's like a buy one, get one free of any pizza you buy at Domino's. So
it has all those little break-off things on it?
Yeah, it has those little break-off. I'm not sure how many actually come on there. It's a lot.
There's probably about 20 or something.
Yeah, it's around 20, around there. So that too, but support Village Pizza. Yearbook Club. Sorry, Yearbook Club. They are. Sorry, I'm not part of that. But they're meeting once a week. I met with Ms. Bringham, and she's advising that. They're holding a cover contest, which is going to be ending November 1st. Basically, students can submit covers to the yearbook, and at the end, I'm not sure how they're going to, I think they're going to take a vote at the yearbook committee on which one they feel is best. And also right now, they're collecting Remember Whens as well as baby pictures for the yearbook. They're going to be selling yearbook ads to try and lower the cost of yearbooks, as they've done in prior years. They're hoping that parents, kids, and businesses, etc., would buy the ads so that way the yearbook significantly drops in price. Journalism Club, I met with Mr. Thibodeau, and I guess they're creating something new this year. They're going to be creating a school calendar inside of the Villager, and it's going to basically kind of hold events going on in the school so that way kids can kind of get a visual sense of time and everything that's happening. Also, he said that the school committee is more than welcome to post any events that they wanted to, so if you just want to get in contact with him, then you can post in the calendar. Project Action, I met with Mrs. Medeiros, and basically it's a program. It's like a credit recovery class. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's like a credit recovery class. It's going to be after school, and kids are like welcome to come and work on getting some credits. If they're behind, they can go to this class, and it's also to like help build them up with social, emotional, and behavioral issues. So I don't know if you guys want to pass that around. It's just kind of the informational packet.
Are they're the ones that did the job fair last year, right?
Yes, they organized that. There's that. Now that's being run by Ms. Videris, and I think I'm sorry, I think someone else too, but I'm not really sure. Basically, you have to be referred by your teachers, you know. So there's that. There's a couple of new things this year as far as high school goes, especially with the NEASC evaluation. Everyone's kind of, you know, getting a little crazy about it. So we've implemented some new things. No, it's serious, but some guidance seminars. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about that, but basically Westport High School is part of the Race to the Top federal grant program. And part of this program, school guidance counselors are now required to provide a curriculum to all students in all grades on various topics. Some of these topics include like grades, credits, asking for help, study skills, resume writing, preparing for college, careers, and beyond, etc. Therefore, each quarter, the guidance counselors are going to meet with every grade separately. They've already done the first guidance seminar, and I personally felt it was really helpful. They met with the seniors basically about college, getting a resume together. Each student from grades 9 to 12 were given an 8-pocket portfolio, and this is going to help store their 4-year plans, their transcripts, graduation requirements, and any other paperwork required to applying that to their future career and college. So I thought that was very helpful. It's kind of gotten me to organize myself, so it's nice. Also, there's an advisory program that we've implemented. This program meets one Thursday a month during school. It's right after break. Students are assigned to a teacher or another staff member, and together they discuss topics that will assist students in their educational careers. These groups are divided up by grade, and it ranges from 8 to 12 members a group around, and it's a fantastic way for students to become connected with an adult in the school, and it kind of gets you organized. It goes along with also the guidance seminars, like kind of getting organized and getting your stresses and whatnot organized. So it was helpful. Freshman orientation, I'm sorry, I know it's a lot. It's just a lot going on.
In a while, so you've got a lot to tell us.
A lot going on. Freshman orientation on September 13th. The guidance department held a freshman orientation, and grade 9 parents and their children were invited to the high school to meet with the guidance department, older students, and administration to ask questions and also receive a tour of the high school, as they do every year. Students from grade 10 and 10 through 12 spoke to the audience about their experience at the Westport High School, and each student that participated in the orientation is part of the Stay in the Game program. That it's a conference we went to. It's an anti-bullying conference, and it's also promote like smart decision making. We all went, and it was a very, very good conference. I've been twice so far, and it was really good. So we basically went, we presented to the freshmen, and so it went really nice. We spoke about basically the importance of being involved in sports and clubs, so we kind of get them involved. The PSATs, Westport High School has received a grant which allows over 140 sophomores and juniors the ability to take the PSATs. It's a great tool to practice for the SATs. I've done it, and it was really good. It's going to be October 17th at the high school, so we have that going on. On October 25th, from 6 to 8 in the auditorium, the guidance department is going to be hosting an annual financial aid night, so there's also that. Common application, also this was also part of the guidance seminars. During the month of October, guidance counselors have been meeting with groups of seniors to assist, like signing up for the common application, making sure they're doing it right, because it's a very long and tedious process. God bless you. Groups of they take groups of 10 to 12 students, seniors that is, and you help sign up for the common application, which is basically, it's an application. It's accepted by over 400 different colleges, and you basically just fill that out and you can send it to whatever colleges are part of that program if you want to attend. So you don't have to fill out like 20 different college applications. That's exaggeration. I'm sorry, but like that. So that's very useful. I know I signed up for it, and it was nice having the guidance counselors kind of walk you through it. SATs are coming to Westport High on Saturday, November 3rd. So that's important. Also, there's this new parent place on the website where parents can go to the website. I think it's called Parents Corner, and basically the guidance counselors are going to trying to do a good job providing updates to parents, and it's a nice place for parents to go and stay up to date with certain things going on, like these financial aid nights and certain things like that. And also the mission statement for the guidance department. I'm pretty sure you guys know that.
Very good, thank you.
So, any questions? Feel
I just
free.
comment, I've seen the pocket portfolio. It is very, very nice.
Oh, it's nice.
It's very well done.
Oh, I have
it's
mine
a great
fully
organizational
stacked.
tool for you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything for him?
What night was the homecoming? You said
The
the
homecoming,
second?
November 5th.
Oh,
Oh,
5th.
let me explain that.
Because it's a Monday.
Great point. Thank you. November 5th is a Monday. The reason why we did that is because it's actually much cheaper, as you know, to have a dance on a Monday. But we have school canceled on a Tuesday. We don't have school on a Tuesday, so that's why we did it that way.
And
So-
SATs on Saturday.
And SATs, yes.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so it'd be bad if it was the Friday before.
yeah, so it kind of all works out nicely, especially considering we have no school on Tuesday. So,
So you're going to have the thing during the day for the sports? Is that what that is? It's not at
oh,
it's
no,
not at the
not at the
is it?
homecoming. During the school day, we're going to call down the school, either into the auditorium or the gym. The student council basically has to get that organized. I just got it approved. So we're basically going to call just the fall sports up, kind of recognize each team and thank them for the great job they've been doing.
So it's a bit of a pep rally.
Yeah,
Kind
kind of like a small pep rally without the big production of it all.
Nice.
It's kind of just more of a simplistic pep rally. Also, the reason why I didn't present on sports is because obviously Mr. Pacheco's here, so I'm going to let him kind of take that.
A little bit of a question between, I know they're going to be speaking later, but do they handle the activities now? I know he did a lot of activities. So we don't have anyone to help him with his activities? Okay.
You are keeping your grades up with all the bouncing around that you're doing?
Yes,
Yeah,
of
that
course.
was a pause there, Danny.
Yes, yes, of course. No, it's
That's
a
why
lot of
portfolio
bouncing
is that
around,
big.
a lot between everything. I'm always everywhere.
I know you are.
Meeting with different people.
Anything else? For
Uh,
him?
Great
Great
job
job.
as usual.
Thank
oh,
you.
thank
Very thorough.
Thank you very much.
Very thorough.
Thank
I'll buy a cheesecake.
I look forward to the day that
Thank
you
you.
are running for president.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully I have your vote.
We'll start with Mr. Westport, though.
Oh, I can't wait for that. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited about that. So, sounds good. Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a great
Well,
night.
he's a tough act to follow, Kim. On to the maintenance and custodians update.
Well, I won't be doing the maintenance because Mike's not back yet full-time, so I'm sure he'll be invited back at a later date to cover his department. But the custodians, we had a very, very busy summer, very successful summer, considering some of the challenges that we had. At the Macomber School, everything was pretty smooth this year. We had no summer school there due to the roof project possibly lasting into summer school. Some of the concerns that we had with the roof project later on into the summer was we received a lot of flat tires from the roofing nails that were on the grounds. So it would delay the use of the tractors until we could get things fixed and things like that. But other than that, it was pretty much smooth sailing at the Macomber School. We were able to replace all the damaged ceiling tiles from previous roof leaks. So the school is all nice and buttoned up and tight. So hopefully, if anything happens, we'll hear about it right away and we'll be able to spot it without any old tiles being there. The elementary school, the same situation. They did an excellent job. They had a large amount of summer school there due to the fact that the Macomber School had to be put over to the elementary school and other programs that they had offered throughout the summer. Those things, summer school, teacher trainings, all those types of activities that happen in our buildings, that also takes the custodians away from summer cleaning because then they have to go back and take care of those areas, restrooms, classrooms, trash, things like that. So that kind of, backtracks them a little bit. We had a large amount of classrooms that moved at the elementary school. And then later on into the summer, those classrooms had to be moved again because teachers were switched from here to there. So there was a lot of that this summer at the elementary school. There was also a lot of putting together furniture that teachers had purchased or ordered or, things like that. So that was very time-consuming at that school. But they I don't know how it happens, but every year that's the most labor-intensive school to clean, and they do an excellent job, and they always get it finished. The middle school, a lot less headaches than last summer, but we did get one headache from last summer is the significant amount of VCT tiles now in the building. I mean, it's absolutely tremendous. We have the media center, the band rooms, the computer labs, the music rooms. Everything else that was carpeted is now VCT tile, and it's more labor intensive to strip, wax, and seal those type of floors. So it's a lot more difficult to get that finished, but they did it.
Kim, what percentage do you think compared to the way it was before? Any idea?
I'm not good at that, but I would definitely say there's probably, would you think maybe like a 40% increase in VCT tile? I'm guessing. I truly guess.
Well, we ripped out a lot of rug.
Yep.
And all the rug was replaced with
just
tile.
the whole media center and
The
band
media
room
center,
are
the band
big.
rooms. The band room is huge. It's just huge. And even the office areas.
Right.
I mean, it's much more difficult. The office people are in. Now we have to take all that furniture out, strip all that floor where they were carpeted before. So it's really.
You can't go around the furniture because otherwise the material actually will interact with the legs of the furniture in there, and then it'll just literally cement it to the floor and corrode
And then
it.
if you want to take it up, then the tile goes with it. So it's a little difficult for that. But
It's one of those unintended consequences.
Right. I mean, it is pretty. It does brighten up the school. It is much easier to keep clean. I think there's less issues. There's no mold issues. There's no, issues with spills and things like that. But it's definitely, in the summer, it's very, very labor intensive. They also had summer school at their school, not at the extent of the elementary, but they still had some. But they did a very good job over there. And the high school, we also had summer school and training here, same issues. The roof project, we did have some complications with that. When the cuts were made in the roof accidentally, we had floods from rain, we had damaged ceiling tiles. I mean, it was practically just raining in the science area, and all staff was called up there between the cleaning up and the, things like that. We've had sections down here in the cafeteria that were finished. That again, we had leaks. Ceiling tiles came down. They were cleaned up. The floor had already been finished. They had to be redone. Back and forth with that. But again, with the staff that we have, they did an excellent job. I mean, and schools were open, safe and clean and bright and shiny for all our students and staff to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Is that all you have?
yes.
Any questions for her?
Courtyards.
Yes.
Whose realm do they fall under? Is it
Well,
yours? Is it
That's really
$60,000 question.
roll of the dice. Years ago, the elementary school courtyard was taken care of through the science teachers.
Yeah, that was when I was there.
Yep, that's what Mike had told me. He said science teachers, that was a big class project. After that, It was done by an outside contractor. With the budget cuts, we haven't been able to do that. Not only that, the expense has really, we used to budget a little over 2,000. The last estimate that we had received, it was well over 3,000. So we weren't able to do that anymore. So what happened at that courtyard is school committees have been brought projects through church groups and Boy Scouts and other organizations. Oh, we want to do this, we want to take care of this, we want to do that. So when you let that kind of stuff happen, I mean, the custodians absolutely, the maintenance takes care of bushes, the custodians rake up leaves and things like that, but actual full-blown, you know, like what we just had this summer, removing trees and things like that, that's more of a big, you know, that's something that has to be discussed, and financially, if we have any room in the budget, that's done.
Well, last year, the Honor Society at high school did this one.
Right.
Is that something that those kids are required to do community service work as part of their Honor Society, as well as the middle school, I believe, do community service work? So is that something?
They have been given permission through school committees previously, but what happens is they come in and it's almost like a one and done, then they never come back.
Right.
And then we don't know what's a weed, what's a plant, because we don't know what they planted, what they want, you know. But we, again, maintenance comes in, trims all the bushes, mulches, and does things.
So the basics,
you know, stuff like that. We have the custodians go out and rake up the leaves and do, you know, trash removal and stuff like that. But any big, you know, major projects are all budget driven.
That answer your question? Anything else? No? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
On to the sports update. If you guys both want to come up at the same time. We'll start with you, Mr. Camper, as you're first on my list.
Awesome.
We're not scary. It's all good.
All right, so my name is Matt Camper. I'm the athletic director at the middle school, also phys ed and health teacher there. Right now for the fall sports, we have field hockey and soccer. Field hockey, we have 28 girls on the team, so it was good numbers. They have enough for an A and a B team, but a lot of the schools we play don't have B teams. So when that happens, it's tough to play 28 girls in one game. So I know we've got some complaints about playing time from parents. But I told the coach that's, you know, she deals with playing time, she deals with strategy. It's not my job. But right now the girls are undefeated. No one scored a goal against them, so having a pretty good season. Soccer, we had 22 kids make the team. We had a lot more try out. We had close to 40 kids try out, but it's just the fact we only have 22 uniforms. So it's good to see that kind of participation. Soccer team's doing good right now. They're in third place, 4-1-2, I believe, or four wins, 2 ties, 1 loss. So they're doing pretty good. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Field hockey,
28 girls.
28 girls tried out or on the team.
28 girls made the team. They didn't have to cut anybody.
How many girls play at it?
At one time, it's 11 on the field. Field hockey is the one sport I do.
Instead of doing like an A, B, I understand that. Can't we just have 2 teams?
I mean,
Two
some of the
A-teams
schools
already.
we play have 2 teams. They have an A team and they have a B team. So they'll go and they'll play the 2 games. But some schools
They're
only
playing
have,
at the same level. When you say A and B, we're not. Are we saying level?
there's an
It's like
A team
JV
that is
varsity.
the better
Like a
players.
varsity.
It's like a-
than-
it's
yeah,
like a
it's kind of
JV
like junior
varsity.
varsity.
I'm saying, but is it possible to split all these players up and just have 2 teams and split? You know,
I don't think it would work with the schedule because some schools only have enough kids to put out 1 team. So I think the way they do it is A and the B team works pretty well.
It's like working a varsity and a JV team.
and then the uniforms. What, we don't have enough uniforms for.
For soccer, there's 22 uniforms, so that's how many they could keep.
And that's an A and B team.
No, it's boys and girls, it's just 1 team. So there's some boys on the team, some girls on the team, but it's just 1 team.
What's the mix? Just curious.
The
Boy-girl mix. I'm just honestly totally curious. I have no idea.
I want to say it's about maybe 8 girls to the rest being boys. 8, 9 girls, I think. Oh. Good.
It's tough at that level to play against the boys.
Some of the girls are pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, I know they are. Anything else for Mr. Camper?
Good luck.
Good question. As you're getting adjusted to the new position, and finance becomes part of our ongoing project, certainly I'm sure requests from you will be passed through the superintendent to us. Do you anticipate asking for more uniforms next year? Is that...
It'd be nice. I don't know, like for soccer, some of the uniforms are different. So it'd be nice to have one of the same uniforms. Like some kids having uniforms that look one way, some kids having uniforms that are kind of blank and don't say anything on them, just a number on the back.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have, one uniform. But, I know the budget's tough, so it's not something that's necessary to have, but it would be nice to have one uniform instead of a kind of a mix. In field hockey, I think the uniforms are all set, they're all the same.
Just don't be afraid to ask for it.
Carolina?
Yeah, my understanding is that they had new uniforms, and the ones that are odd-looking are the uniforms that they replaced.
Okay.
My kids are on the team. That's the only reason I know.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You want to switch seats? There you go. Oh, you had everything
Just
else
switch
spread out.
microphones.
Could have moved microphone. Sorry, being difficult.
I'm Jason Pacheco. I'm the athletic director here at Westport High School. I am also a teaching assistant in a self-contained special needs classroom as my full-time job with the athletic director, part-time on top of it. In terms of fall sports, we have 98 athletes currently participating, which, from what I understand, is about 10 more than last year. I know for a fact that it's one more, actually, in each of our 4 sports that we have here. We have one more field hockey player, one more golfer, one more volleyball player, and one more soccer player than last year on each of those rosters. I could not find accurate rosters from our co-op teams that we have with Bishop Conley from last year, but we do have 17 football players currently playing at Bishop Conley and 6 girls playing soccer as well. So I kind of estimated about 10 more from talking to...
Is that part of that 98 or above?
Yes, the 98 total athletes from here playing, whether it be for us or for Bishop Conley in the co-op situation that we're in. So the numbers are up, and it's good. Our teams have been fairly competitive. Volleyball's currently playing a match right now. They are 4-7 right now, and 3-4 in the league. With the JV team being 3-8, 2-5 in league competition. Our field hockey team is 2-6-3, and 1-3-3 in the league. Both volleyball and field hockey still have tournament aspirations and the possibility of making the state tournament. Our JV field hockey team has done well. They're 4-3-4, thanks to Mr. DeVar, and they're 1-3-3 in the league. Our golf team is 5-8, but 5-4 in the league. They play very tough non-league competition, but to be 5-4 in the league is very good. And our soccer team, which was tied when I left the miserable rain out there, they are 5-5-1 and 5-2-1 in the league with the game currently. So it could be over by now.
You had a big jump in football from last year. I could have swore there's only like 3 or 4 last year that played football.
I think there was more than 3 and 4, but I want to say it was probably low double digits, maybe 10, 11. So I would say there's probably at least 5 more football players this year than last year.
Now, we
That
can
was
only
the
co-op
biggest
when
game.
they can't field a whole team. Are they getting close to that over at Conley to where they're going to be telling our 17 kids, you're done?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I think our 17 is the majority. I believe we have more than Bishop Conley does.
We should have our team and have them come to us.
I've heard. I don't have an official full roster. I just know of our players that are playing there, and I believe that everything that I've been told is they have around 30 kids. So we have the majority.
I think for girls soccer, I think they only had 3 last year.
They did.
We had 3 going over, and now we've got 6 going
Right.
over, so.
I know we lose a lot of kids to other area schools because of the football program, and if we see the numbers keep going up and up, we may want to think about, I know when Jim Bernard was here on the school committee, that was his big kick, having a football team here, and I think we'd be able to attract a lot more kids that staying in the district.
Sure. I agree.
Anything else?
A couple of questions for you. As you know, we're part of the MIAA, and I guess we pay a fee for that. And so their rules and regulations are the governance for our interscholastic participation. I know you're new in the position, but I did want to bring to your attention that they do have some training programs for high school athletic directors, et cetera. Didn't know if you had looked into that at all.
I have, and I plan on going to the MIAA Rules Orientation and Induction Workshop on November 8th, which takes place right in Franklin at the MIAA office. And I already attended a District D meeting on the 28th of September that I went to Rochester, which was very helpful in terms of getting things started. It was the first one that they've had since I was hired, so it was good to be there. And I think this one on the 8th of November is going to clear a lot of things up and give me a lot more information, because it basically starts from the beginning to the end with and it covers people with no experience like myself. So I think it'll be very helpful.
Well, good luck with that. And certainly, as that is your jurisdiction, I would ask that you forward on some of your information that you feel appropriate to the coaching staff. And in particular, I did a quick internet search on what particular rules and regulations seem to be prominent in the news, and I did notice some schools being sanctioned, if you will, under Rule 40 and 41. I'm sure that'll be covered in the seminars that you go through, so you might want to share that with some of the coaching staff if you feel that there's any concerns, or probably just as you're getting new, fresh information, it's a good idea to share that with the staff, and more importantly, good luck with all the sports teams. I'm very happy to hear the participation levels are up.
Sure. Thank you.
Where do we play golf at?
Coxit Country Club.
Anything else? No? Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You guys are doing a lot of work for very little. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, on to FY13 budget review. Dr. Collin.
Okay, you already had the August review, so this is kind of like an update. So now it's cumulative up through the end of basically last month. We do have some areas that we're tracking, but not so much as deficits, but more areas where we haven't moved monies around. So, for example, we do have under supervision, under the expenditure report, we have some money still there for supervisors that we haven't implemented this time around this year so far, because that's part of what we still need to work out with the teacher union in terms of the new evaluation. So that's still there. We do have a couple of areas where we've spent money, but we haven't transferred it. So if you take a look at page 3 under the expenditure report for the general fund, you have some areas that are really big minuses, look like, $120-some thousand. That's because until we have the staff development days, we had 3 in the summer, just before the school year starts, we basically transfer the money into those accounts after we've had the days, so that we can track how much each person gets paid, because that's one of those areas we report to the state in terms of how much money we have spent for staff development for our staff. They keep track of that. It's one of those areas we want to be accurate with. So we have it in each of the building accounts. So the salary accounts from those buildings will eventually be charged these monies to be transferred to these professional development days. So for now, they're just looking as big minuses, but they're not really minuses. The money's in the regular salary accounts. We have spent about 10% of our regular ed salary budget. I do know that we have some savings in the
number of staff that we hired versus the staff we were planning on having, because we lost some staff over the course of the year, over the course of the summer. So when we hired new staff, many of them are not as experienced or have as many degrees or credentials as the staff we used to have. So we're tracking about somewhere around $80,000 to $90,000 worth of savings. Maybe a little less, because we're going to have to hire a paraprofessional, although I still have Melissa working out to make sure that that is an accurate count. We just literally hired the last person. Before this one paraprofessional, we still have not contracted. We've done interviews, but we haven't contracted them yet. Let me see. In terms of the general fund, we do have about 10% of that is expended, the general fund altogether. When you take a look at regular education expenses, not the salaries, you'll see that many of the accounts are being expended as you would expect. These are things that the principals tend to use earlier in the year. We do still have some monies within the superintendent's office. We basically use those as we need over the course of the year, whereas the schools usually use it at the beginning of the year to get the year started and get all the supplies that they need. So if you look at the supply material lines, we're starting to see some more expenses, some of the lines getting 80% expensed, and you're going to see that increase over the course of the year. Hopefully we won't have a lot of money left in those. Let me see. There's another flag. And I notice a lot of the technology accounts are already spent because we buy the stuff at the beginning of the year. Again, it's one of those things. We try to use the money so that we can put it in play right at the beginning of the year. Oh, you do have one area in terms of the contracted services way in the back, page 15. Looks like a minus. This was monies that, if you remember, at the end of last year.
Which subsection are you talking about?
This is in the general fund expenses, regular ed expenses, page 15.
We're still adjusting here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Page 13?
15.
15.
Under regular education?
Regular education expenses, yes. General fund.
What was the line?
It's the line under middle school, just under health services, actually under contracted services. There was some amount of money that we had set aside at the end of last year to purchase the gym pads, if you remember that discussion. We went ahead and purchased the gym pads, but we couldn't have them installed because the company did not have the available personnel because we waited till so late in the year to contract them. So we decided to bite the bullet because I knew that was a very important thing for the school committee to get those gym pads, and particularly at the middle school where you have the cement and brick walls with the sharp edges. So we purchased the material, but now out of this year's budget, what we had to purchase was their labor to install them. So you have some negatives in there. We'll have to transfer money into that. Again, some of the balances you're going to see are very small amounts, but remember, it's the expenditures that we have. Some of them are encumbered in total. For example, some of the things that we do out of maintenance, we know that we're going to use that money, so we encumbered it. And then divided into different accounts so that as we need the materials, like the stripper for the floors, the bags for the vacuums, the bags for the garbage, we keep drawing out of those accounts. About now we're about 15% expent. Sped expenditures, that we use a little bit quicker again because we try to set up the classrooms. The only question that I want to point out there is we do have some money still in the sped tuition. And again, we had to take some money for the vision teacher. And we had additional
You're on
circuit
page 20, right?
20 to 23. We do have some additional funding in the circuit breaker account because the state, after we closed the budget, went ahead and decided that they were going to increase the percentage reimbursement from last year. Now, that's a projected amount of money that we're going to get into these accounts because the state sends it out as the year goes on. So we're hoping the state will really come up with the money. We do have some monies set aside for the known cases that are in contention at this point. We did not lose. Basically, the state ruled against our argument that that parent that we didn't know was living in town really does live in town, and therefore we need to pay for that. So that's basically that money is gone. We have 3 other cases in contention at this point, so I'll keep you posted as we go through. Again, if they go our way, we may have some savings. If not, we won't have any savings whatsoever this year. Would be nice to have some again this year, but I can't guarantee it. Transportation, as you know, we used some of the money that we had put into transportation to balance the budget, so I don't expect to see any savings in those lines in terms of the transportation services. However, if you take a look, and I want to take you now to the revolving accounts, just because one is part of our budget, the other one is the revolving account for transportation. If you see there, we had encumbered $77,000 of expenses in that revolving account.
On page 2, right?
On page 2.
Make sure everything's in the right spot.
I just wanted to make sure you could link the two things together. We had accounted or expected to get about $77,000 so that we could use it to pay for our services. And so far, our revenue is only $63,000, pretty much. So we're running a little short in that account. Again, we may have money in salaries that we may be able to transfer to this, or we may have some monies in the special ed accounts because of circuit breaker that we could transfer into this. We see a little bit of revenue coming through during the course of the year as kids move in and decide they want to use transportation, but as we get closer to the end, to the middle of the year, we don't charge them the full amount anyway. So I don't expect us to get the full $77,000 that we expected, which probably means that we got more parents driving their kids and not wanting to have their kids take the bus at the middle school and the high school. So we're not having as much revenue come in. I can tell you, even at the MAC where they don't have to pay today when it rained, it was quite busy, that parking lot. The other one I want to point out is you have a very big expense on the athletic accounts. So if you go up one page before on your revolving accounts, looks like expenses are like minus $27,000. The reason being is when
I have it on page page one.
It's on page
Okay.
1.
Because there was no page 4.
No, it's
No,
page one.
Okay.
One, sorry. When the construction company made the boo-boo and cut through the roof down by the gym, some of the asbestos that we had to clean up fell into the room where we stored a lot of our athletic equipment. Basically, we had Mike Dort and our clerk of the works go in, catalog all the stuff that was in there. Then we had the EPA certified consultant come in and say which pieces could be cleaned and could stay and which ones had to be thrown out. We threw out about $22,000 worth of stuff, which we then turned around and purchased, and we back-billed the construction company who gave us a check, but the check hasn't registered in the account yet. We did get the check, so it looks big right now, but it's not really that. It's just the deposit hasn't caught up with the report, just so people know that. Other than that, the other ones that I know we've been tracking over time is the school lunch, which is the last one on your report, page 3. School lunch is down. We're carrying about $100,000 one year to the next in terms of a carry-forward balance, which we were hoping to use in case one of our old pieces of equipment that are like, some of them, we don't know how old they are because companies gone under, nobody knows, we don't have any information, so we're thinking these pieces of equipment, some of them are original to the buildings. If they go, they're anywhere between $50 or more $1,000. So we wanted to keep a cushion in there. Last year, however, when we had the PCB issues at the middle school and we closed the cafeteria, we had food available, but it was bag lunches. A lot of the kids chose not to use our services, and therefore we lost quite a bit of money in that first few months of the school year, and that's why your revolving account balance has gone down to this year. So hopefully the equipment will keep working and we won't have to dip into that, or if we do, we may be able to replace one piece of equipment, no more than that. Just in talking to Michelle, just knowing what they cost.
Eric?
All right, Carly, 2 quick questions. Have all the families been reimbursed the transportation monies that were free and reduced?
I am not sure, but I can find out.
And second question, about 2 months ago, we had some input on the budget, and there was about 6 line items that were incorrect. Have those been corrected in the 13 budget? Well, I think it was Attorney Corey was here, and he had some line items that you were accounting for 5 people, and it was only actually 3, and there was like 6 line items that he had discrepancies on. Have those been corrected?
As far as I know, they were, because I gave the numbers to Melissa. And if you, I think we did it almost at the very beginning of the year. We went through and figured out how many staff people were in each account. And part of the problem is sometimes we know we have, 27 assistants throughout the district, but they may be, this year you got 10 at the high school, next year you may have 6 at the high school and 10 at the middle school and vice versa. So as they move around year to year, sometimes we don't catch the adjustment. And at this point, Melissa has the numbers. So.
Okay.
Michael?
A couple of things that I had some questions as you were going through the expenditures. Probably my biggest concern is the reference to the construction company made a boo-boo. We haven't had, in terms of a school committee, any report of such boo-boo. I don't know if the building committee has, but I'm not aware. I've heard from 2 reports here that there was some cuts on beams, there was some asbestos. I'd like to get some more information on that, but in particular, what's on the table here is a reimbursement. You made reference to something in the revolving account.
Yep.
And that's where you lost me.
27.
It was under the sports activity account.
Okay. Sports activities.
Page one.
Page one.
Of the revolving account.
Okay.
Under
If you
student
look on the
activities.
right-hand side, it shows up as a negative $27,000.
Minus 27,097.
Okay, so, yeah,
In terms of the other part of your question about the report, if you look down on number, action agenda B5, I'll be able to give you some information then. But yes,
no, my question
or I
is
can do it now.
the negative 27,000, what does that have to do with the roof?
When they cut through the roof deck, they allowed some of the material from the roof, which happened to contain asbestos, and we knew that. They had protocols to clean up and remove the old roof material. Instead, they did not follow suit. When the clerk of the works caught on to what they were doing, he stopped them, but they had already cut through the metal decking over on top of the gymnasium. They were then required to remediate that. In other words, clean up, fix the roof deck, and put in the new roof as they were supposed to do it.
Okay.
When they did that, one of the issues was that some of the asbestos dust basically settled inside the building. That part of the building was shut off. We did all the protocols that are required to basically do an asbestos abatement and cleanup. In the process of doing that, we had to throw out materials that couldn't be cleaned of asbestos. You have to treat them as now hazardous materials, and they have to be disposed of. We had our own staff and staff from the Pink & Company go in and make an inventory of all the materials that were in there, and then we had the consultant from the cleanup company tell us which pieces could stay and which ones had to go. The ones that had to be thrown out, we wanted to replace them because we need them for our school. And then we back charged whatever the replacement cost was to the company. It ended up being about $22,000. That money was reimbursed to the district by the construction company because they basically screwed up. And that's, when they do, they're held accountable, and we did. They wrote us a check, which has been deposited, but when this report was written, it hadn't hit, the deposit will come up next month.
Okay, so I understand now. But, so my question is, for hazardous material cleanup, we use student fees which were paid into an athletic account?
No. What we used the athletic account was to pay for buying the materials again, the materials we had to throw out.
Okay. Again, it's all new to me. I wasn't aware of that. What I was aware of is that some of the employees of the roofing company have filed complaints that they handled asbestos and weren't trained to do so. Have we heard anything more about potential expenses for that? My understanding is the Department of Labor has received some complaints from the construction staff.
They have not made me aware of that.
So if in fact we're fined for that, would we be charging a student fee accounts to pay for expenses incurred till we carry it?
Number one, no.
I think the fees as collected for a particular purpose should be insulated, and in the case of replacing, I think we should have at least known about that transfer. I'm concerned about the purpose of the student athletics and activities fee in terms of what it's budgeted for, what we calculate we need, and then have an expense related to hazardous material being covered and being glossed over as a made-a-boo-boo comment. I don't think it's the appropriate reporting of information to the school committee.
Well, number one, that account has always been used to buy materials for sports. We take fees in, and those fees are used to buy materials from those fees, and this is the account that we use to do that. So when we lost materials for sports, we used that account to buy materials for sports. I'm trying to explain that the reason why we had to buy materials for sports that we weren't intending to was because we were required to get rid of them.
Okay.
And
well,
that
again,
the money
my
will,
comment is simply, your report was that we made a boo-boo. Now you're
We didn't.
explaining. that someone made a boo-boo. I wrote that down, okay? The construction company made a boo-boo. Now the explanation that's coming forward is based on my questions of, what's this about asbestos? The construction company cut through a beam. I'd like to get more information on that. I'd like to know, once the beam was cut, or beams were cut, was structural engineers called in?
Yes. Do you want the report now, or do you want it when it's in the...
No, I think we should get it then, but I do remember an email coming through for that particular one saying that they made an error and that it was over the gymnasium, and that they would be fixing it. We didn't have a lot of detail. It was a generic, because it was midsummer, if I remember correctly. I remember that particular one.
We've had a lot of meetings since then, though.
We're used to emails about hazardous material. I don't think make a boo-boo is an appropriate report of an instance of a new problem with hazardous material. I also feel that shifting through revolving accounts, which are accounts that I've asked before, that we have more detail of the expenditures out of these accounts, the response to me was that that's too much work for the business office, so that we're not going to do it that way. That's why our revolving accounts do not line up with our regular expenditure reports. We don't get any history. So to present a report with such a comment, I had some questions, so thank you for the explanation. I look forward to more detail of any other potential costs associated with the unfortunate construction incident.
Is there anything else on the budget stuff? Seeing none. On to the superintendent evaluation. This is a process that has to be done in open session.
I thought we went over that with the attorney last week, that it didn't have to be, that was...
It doesn't have to be filled out in open session. It still has to be discussed. 2 weeks ago. Yes, it doesn't have to be filled out. So the evaluation, last year we sat and we filled out the evaluation instead of doing it at home.
Because I have my grades on it, but I don't have any
You can make your comments tonight. As you say your comments, they'll be recorded and included in the compiled evaluation. Karen did ask that for her, just ease of helping her be able to go back into the comments portion. If you do go through and want something included, go ahead and highlight it. That way she can easily find the comment that is being discussed.
Mrs. Stewart, can
Go
I
ahead.
make
Yeah.
a statement before we
Yes, go right ahead.
begin?
Could I ask one question on
Yes.
this? I'm also a little surprised that we're getting to this stage tonight. I do recall 2 weeks ago we had a workshop on next year's. We did discuss at length last year's evaluation. So if you can just bring me up to speed on, we did receive the forms. And so you want the completed forms today?
An email was sent out to the Friday, I believe, after the last meeting, with the forms, and it also said to bring the completed form to tonight's meeting, and a reminder went out as well by me, reminding.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at that email now. It says to bring the completed forms to the October 10th school committee meeting. Okay. I do see that email from Karen, and
Do you have?
I was just, I have forms with some information on it, but I was a little confused with last year's process and this year's process.
The only difference is that last year, we filled them out at home, and we discussed that.
No, we filled them here.
I'm sorry, we filled them out here, and we discussed at the last meeting that we didn't feel that that was time efficient for the meeting, nor was it really helpful. I think we all agreed that.
And I thought the aggregate, we were supposed to turn these into you, you compile the aggregate, and that's what's presented in public.
No.
After today.
The first thing is the discussion of each individual. You can't include from your evaluation and Michael's evaluation and Tony's and mine and Carolina's, the information cannot be included on the aggregate without discussing it in open session. So you can't even compile your final evaluation until you have discussed it in open session.
That might have been covered in the workshop after I left, but when I left the workshop, what we were told is we would submit it to you, and then the aggregate would be what was released.
And we read it out.
And that each individual, and that we would read the aggregate in public, and that each individual evaluation would become a public document upon release. That's what the procedures, and so I would ask, Ms. Chairwoman, based on two of possibly three of the six people at the table having some concern with the process, based on what I read here, that perhaps we want to follow the outline
We're just getting this
that we
now.
went 2 weeks ago.
I understand that. That's because
We're just getting this now,
that's
though.
because he was going on vacation immediately following the fact that we had asked 2 weeks ago to get this done and move it along. So at
But
the
this is
request,
needed.
I understand that. At the request of what was discussed at the last meeting, I moved it along quickly because that's what we had
Yes.
discussed doing. It was mentioned during our meeting, Mr. Kuchar did not do a lot of discussion after you left on the superintendent's evaluation. Most of this you did here. This is the process. I don't have a problem if everybody's in agreement doing this at the next meeting.
I just think that this self-evaluation would help.
I agree with you, and in a perfect world, I would have liked to have had that ahead of time like we did last year as well. There was a tremendous amount of push on me to get this done, so
It's moving good.
I'm trying to appease the masses as best I can. Michael?
Well, a couple of things. One is, as I said, three members here are questioning what we said 2 weeks ago.
No, two
and
members right now.
There's six people at the table, including Dr.
Dr.
Colley.
Colley's not a member of the school committee.
No, but I said at the table. The superintendent has a seat at the table. Of the six members at the table, three have concern with the process. Because I just read,
Understood.
now, you also indicated that on Friday something went out because of a vacation. You have since been notified that I was not aware that there was a vacation going on beforehand. I think we maybe could have discussed if there was going to be an issue with a vacation and an evaluation and scheduling it.
It actually was discussed that night at the meeting.
There was-
Perhaps you
No, there
have
was
stepped
one
out.
day that he was not going to be available. Nothing was said about being away on vacation until after the fact.
Michael, I'm not arguing
not
about pushing
arguing.
this off. No, you actually are.
No,
I wanna do
I'm
what
making
you guys
response to three times,
He's not required to notify the school committee when he's leaving unless it is more than the 10 consecutive days.
he's not required. I believe you, as the chairperson,
I am
should
not
share
required.
any information
I
to
know.
us,
And you did
such
know.
as the superintendent being out of district. You neglected to do that.
I did not.
And as you speak of the push for the evaluation, make it clear, July was the initial request from me to start the evaluation process.
And it was also confused with the new process, Mike.
Not in July, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. The new evaluation process. I'm not even going to argue with you.
It's not an argument,
What is
but
it-
you
what
talked
is it-
about the push.
Excuse me, Michael.
Okay.
What is
push.
it that you guys would all like to do tonight?
Can I speak?
Go ahead.
What I would like to do is not do this evaluation and do the evaluation that is called for in the contract that was signed with the superintendent. And if you want to review what happened this past year, combine it with a new evaluation. I think it's ridiculous that we're doing an evaluation now while we're in the process of implementing a new evaluation system. The four of you signed a contract.
No.
No, 3 people signed.
Only
Three people signed a contract that indicates the evaluation happens in February. We're not in February. No, let me finish, Mr. Sullivan.
I'm just raising my hand, ma'am.
We're not in February. We are in October. I don't understand why we are doing this. I voiced this same objection the last time we had this discussion. There's a new process that's been introduced. We need to deal with that new process, and the evaluation that's taking place now is for work that was done under an old contract that no longer exists. The new contract went into effect on July 1st. What are we evaluating? His work from July 1st till now, or his work prior to July 1st? My understanding is what you're asking for is an evaluation of last school year. For what purpose? The contract doesn't exist anymore. You gave him a new contract, which says he's going to be evaluated in February, not in October. So yes, I'd like to put this off. I would just like to proceed with the evaluation that has now been given to us from the state, that we need to figure out how we're going to do that, because it's slightly different than this, I guess, and move forward on that.
We do have critical areas that need to be evaluated the past year.
I had to raise my hand first.
Go ahead, Mike.
If that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Go ahead, I'm done.
You had your hand up.
I just, number one, nowhere in the contract does it say we do an evaluation in February. Somehow, apparently there was a date changed in the contract from previous because we had missed for 2 years, because for 2 years we delayed evaluations. I cannot answer your question on why for the past 2 years have we delayed evaluation.
No, last year was not delayed.
We did it on time. We did
Last
it in
year was not
February,
delayed.
which means this year was.
Yes, last year was not delayed. It was the 2 prior years. You're absolutely right.
The first year we didn't do an evaluation.
That's correct. So
it's
last
2
year
years.
was completed by the end of November, and the final revision was December 12th, Karen?
Somewhere around there.
Around there. So last year's was completed in a timely fashion. That's all. That's all. I just, because that was the year that I did it, so don't throw me under that one.
No, what I'm suggesting is, I somewhat agree that waiting after July 1st to December or February doesn't seem to make sense. So I agree with the previous speaker. That's why this July, I asked that we move forward on the evaluation procedure, okay? As I have in the past years. There's record of my asking sitting chairpersons to start the evaluation process. I'm prepared to submit an evaluation tonight, but in terms of, it's very clear we're evaluating for FY12. It's very clear that we have a new contract, but last year we were in the midst of an evaluation process as we went through contract negotiations. So I don't know if that answers the question that was put forward on why are we bothering with an evaluation. My ongoing concern for the past multiple years has been the timeline for evaluations. Now, if we have a deadline in the contract till February, I would suggest that we submit our scores, because from my understanding, it's on the agenda. We've all said we have some scores to submit, and I'd ask that perhaps with the submission of some new information, that we keep the evaluation process open to 2 weeks from now, where we could then submit additional remarks, which would be part of the evaluation process.
I don't think we can do that, because at that point it becomes, these need to stay basically in your hands until you discuss them. You can't deliberate on them. Once we put our ranking, rating, whatever you want to call it, out there, that's a form of deliberation. So you can't just hold it over until the following 2 weeks. If we want to push everything back to 2 weeks, then we can push everything back to 2
I
weeks.
can submit, I just don't have any narrative.
I'll submit.
My other comment to this is Dr. Colley's issue is using the old tool, not so much doing the evaluation. His issue is that the tool that we discussed using 2 weeks ago, as a group that we had said we use the same tool for the 2011 to 2012 year, he's suggesting that this is not the tool that he wants us to use. So
we need to sit with him and come up, all those 65 bullets, come up with 8, 10, or 12 of those that we want to evaluate him on.
No, not this year.
But
But that's what he's preferring?
Yes.
Okay.
If I'm to, go
May
ahead.
Part of the issue, and I understand, when we were in the middle of negotiating a contract, there's timelines built into it, and there is usually language in any superintendent's contract over the evaluation. Back then, I knew that the state was coming out with new regulations, a new process that they were going to require all districts to use. And one of the things I had requested is that we embed that into the superintendent's contract so that we're doing what everybody else in the Commonwealth is doing and where all the other administrators and educators are using. That evaluation system works on a couple of things. One is the goals that, supposedly the superintendent puts together. There should be some agreement between the superintendent and the school committee as to what those goals are. That's one. Two, there is a rubric that the state wants to use that encompasses some of the areas that you see in the other system that we use, whatever those forms were. But in the rubric, it describes the different levels that you can use in terms of trying to come up with a summative ratings, if you want to call it that. So it's a little bit more descriptive than just open-ended, put what you think it is without any descriptors to it and just whatever comments you want to make. So it really puts the school committee and the superintendent in the position of having to go through each one of those areas in the rubric to say, area by area, are you here, 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 or here? Unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, or excellent, or exceeds expectations. So I'm suggesting that you're right. Some of it is an overlap between the two systems. The goals that I was trying to achieve last year, if you want to use that part, were goals right out of the district improvement plan. That's why the first thing I did this year in the district improvement plan, if you look in it, you have an area that goes down in each of the action plan areas. It gives a current condition statement, and as you look at the goals from the previous year, it lists, hey, did we complete this? How far did we get with them? Some of them we did, some of them we didn't, some of them were partially completed. So there's that information already been submitted to the school committee. So you have the goals part, and then you do have, if you want to use it, and I'm suggesting we do use it, rather than the subjective, in this category, what do you think? You have a more structured way of evaluating using the rubric that the state came up with. And that's what I was suggesting. I did go through and fill out the forms from the old system because I don't want this to be a conflict issue. And I also wanted to give information to the school committee as to what kind of things we have, and I'm saying me and some of my staff have come to the school committee to present, including the weekly notes that I send to you, explaining the things that I've been doing every week. You have the reports that we've given in the school, in the school committee, You have other access to information like the website. You have reports that have been done for you and presented to you. That all those pieces are there, and if you have any questions, you should be able to review them or ask, hey, I don't know if I've seen information in this area, can you provide it? Obviously, otherwise I'd be carting 20 boxes of information here, which I don't think is sufficient, but if you want some of that information as exemplars, I can provide them.
Sure.
Eric.
Going through his self-evaluation here, it will take us about 3 weeks to do it. Everything is see packet, see presentations, see notes, see weekly emails, see this and see that. There's no narrative to anything other than see something. So if we have to backtrack and look at every one of these, go see this, it's going to take me about 2 weeks to do such.
Well, he didn't fill that out last year.
No, but this is what you want us to use this year, and it says see this, see that, see this.
No, I simply said I would like to use the state's format, not
Then we have to
this.
sit down and come across with, out of the 65 bullets, we have to come up with 8, 10, 12
I see.
areas that we want to evaluate you on. So we're nowhere near that tonight.
Michael.
Yeah, again, I sometimes think I ate and slept evaluations through the summer. I attended many evaluation meetings with staff representatives, and I know that our teachers and I believe all the administration has been evaluated on FY12, okay, according to the old system. We're working on a new system for FY13. I think it's only fair for everyone involved if we follow that same model for the superintendent. Use our existing, as we spoke last month. So based on that, I certainly will take this under advisement, having received it today. I'd like to go forward with the agenda item. I hope that you can accept, in the spirit of a paperless system, I've submitted to the chairperson via email,
Wow,
as we speak,
you're very high
my
tech.
evaluation. So I have submitted my evaluation, and I'd like to move on with this agenda
I
item.
would like to add, in what you had said, Carolina had brought her concerns up to me regarding his contract, regarding why are we doing an evaluation now, why aren't we pushing it back. I spoke with both Glenn through phone call, and I also spoke with our attorney, and they actually both said the identical thing to me. They said what we should be doing, and I spoke with them both on the Thursday after our last meeting, what we should be doing is following 2011's evaluation tool. No disrespect, but that came from both of them. And for the upcoming FY13, which is basically what Michael just said, you are taking the new tool and you are moving forward with the new evaluation procedural stuff. They were both in agreement with what you just said, which is why after our discussion about which tool to use last week, and after speaking with Dr. Colley while on vacation, he said, fine, he agreed to the tool, even though he doesn't particularly like it. But this was the advice from both MASC as well as our attorney to move forward with this one. For this one, and get it out of the way and done so that we can continue with the goal setting and all of the procedural things, which are many, because even the timeline is difficult, because where some of the goals that he is asking us to consider have to do with testing scores. Those testing scores don't come out until September. So now we have to figure out when are we going to evaluate him? Is it going to be the summer? Or are we waiting for those testing scores to come out? And if we wait for the testing scores, then the evaluation obviously needs to be after we get those results back, because I don't know how you can evaluate if you don't have the results. So there's quite a bit of discussion, even regarding timeline, that we all have to figure out, and then those 65 items. And so it is a lengthy process, and I'd like to get going on the 13 process and put this one to bed. And I thought that's what the push was for last week. Michael, you even threw out today's date, and so that's why we moved forward with it. If you guys are in agreement,
I can
then,
hand in, I just don't have any comments on it. I don't mind handing in.
And
I have
basically,
any comment.
that's why I presented, I mean, I know it's hastily done, because I didn't have
I
access
understand.
to any printouts till I got back.
okay, all right, so
It's there.
let's move forward, starting with Section B, job description. Yes. I don't know, he's more tech savvy than me because I didn't even know we could access email through here. I'm impressed, Mike.
Can you access your email from your phone and send it to me, and I can print it out for him?
I can do
I
that.
can send it to you.
Or send it to me, I'll go print it out. and then
Or
you
Beth can print it.
Or even, yeah, you can send it.
Do you
to
want
me.
it right now?
And then that way, if,
Yeah.
because the only thing that can be.
We're sending you an email.
To this, report is anything that is said in public. And I want to make sure that I have the correct information, comments that are said in public when it's all combined.
I just sent it to both of you.
I'll just hand mine in. I have no
Let's put
comments
that
to
on. I
add.
couldn't even get on the link yet.
I'm faster.
Thank you.
So do you want to recess for,
If you don't mind, just
do you guys want to take a quick recess?
There's no comments, so.
I have no comments either. I'll
Based-
just
based
hand
on
them in. There's no comments.
process
It's
was
a-
to hand
It's a
them in.
year old anyway.
Okay, so we'll
Just hand 'em in.
get going and
Just do
the numbers.
composite.
all you're going to do is the numbers then?
We need to,
It serves no purpose other because there's already been a contract signed. Ms. Africano was correct. There's already been a contract because of that year. Just do the aggregate, get on to 13. I don't have any comments. Everyone knows comments. We've been in meetings for a year, so
is that all right with everybody?
unless Tony wants comments to be put in, but he can put all his in. I just have none to put in.
Let me just say something.
Go right
I've
ahead.
been very quiet tonight.
You have been, Tony.
And the reason I've been very quiet, because I hate this system, this evaluation system. The fact that in our individual evaluations, we can sit at home and go through it and put a number grade or a letter grade down in each category, but anything we want to have as part of the aggregate report, the final evaluation, we have to sit here in public and say things that people may not want to hear in public, which I think personally could be done much better in private. The superintendent is the only employee of the schools whose evaluation is done this way. Everyone else's evaluation is done privately. It's private information, but his is not. I don't have any problems putting a number grade on things, but I personally have a problem with the way we do this in public. It's kind of airing, again, I don't want to seem like I'm going one way or the other, but it's kind of like airing dirty laundry. And I mean, I wouldn't want to be sitting in that chair, and I wouldn't want to have this process used on myself or anybody else, really. We should be able to make our comments along with our grade, turn it in, the aggregate get put together, we all look at that. Then at that point we can decide whether the 5 evaluations were unified accordingly for that final evaluation.
That's how I thought he said we could do it. We turn them in, and then they become public, and we read out the comments at that time.
We do have to, you can go in and adjust and change if that's not what you said or whatever, but he did say each individual one had to be discussed as well. I can double check on that anyway, because if we're going to do it this way, then I can still check on the final one, regardless. But either way, it is required by open meeting law. It is not, Michael, do you want to look at this first?
Make sure it's yours.
No. Okay.
Put your name on it.
I'll put my name.
You don't have to even put your name on it. It doesn't matter.
But since it's been printed, we know which one it is.
It's going to be in public, so it becomes a public document.
It does become a public document.
Tony, if it makes you feel any better, I knew that was the way superintendents got evaluated. So it is what it is.
I get that.
Okay, so we'll hand them in, and I will sit with Karen and add them up and compile them, and That took us a while last time, Karen. We'll get lunch or
Well, let me
something.
make sure I didn't miss anything.
I think I sat with you for about 2 hours and did that last year. No. Do you have yours?
Yeah, I already passed it down.
Oh, okay.
It's just waiting to go past Tony.
All right, you guys can move on.
Well, I just want to make sure I have the number for me now.
Or something, so they stay together.
You can just stick yours there. All right, on to the action agenda.
There we go.
Wow, 6:31.
We're almost on time?
We're 1 minute off? Donation of electronic equipment. I just lost it. Worth $2,000 from UMass Dartmouth from the 2007-2012 project
Democratizing access.
Democratizing access to core mathematics across grade 9 through 12, funded by the IES. That was a test for me.
So moved.
And a second? This
Second.
is, let's see,
Is this the first time they've sent us?
Yes, this is the first time that they've made this available to us.
Do you
So
know if this
they've-
is a yearly thing? I'm sorry.
they've donated a classroom set of TI-84 plus
I don't
SE
know if it will be.
calculators,
I think it's a grant they write.
one TI-84 plus teacher calculator and view screen, one complete TI navigator system, one Dell laptop, in-focus projector. Thank you very
Nice.
much for that. And we will send out a thank you.
They also make curriculum available to our staff. Well, actually, they're making it available to everybody, but it's good stuff.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Capital long-term plans. First, Westport Middle School cost study to fully remediate PCBs. Dr. Polly?
Let me pull this apart a little bit. I wanted to make sure we went through some of the questions that have come up over the last year in terms of the middle school, and also bring the school committee up to date on the green projects, basically the two roof projects, one at the Macomber and one at the high school. There are a couple of questions that have come up over the course of the year. If you recall, one of them has been, if we are going to keep the middle school as a middle school and keep that building operating as a school, one of the questions is, what is the long-term plans for making sure that school, one, is safe to be operated in as a school, that the building has maintains a safe level of air quality in terms of PCBs, and at the same time that we comply with EPA regulations. We, I know at several times have asked the question, how much would it take to go ahead and clean the school up to the point of, getting us to as if it was before we discovered the PCBs, which may be a lot of work, or it may be a little bit of work, or it may be somewhere in between. But I know everybody wants me to come up with an answer, and I'm not an expert in that field, nor am I a construction expert or an engineering expert. I am suggesting that we actually do a small study to at least ascertain the costs or the potential costs, or get an idea for the potential costs of getting the school building back to where it was before we discovered the PCBs, in terms of making sure things are either encapsulated or removed, or what do we need to do to make sure the building is as close to where it was before we discovered the PCBs. I don't know if school committee members recall, but I did invite a few companies to come in and present to the school committee in a workshop session during the summer as to what it would take to take a look either at just the middle school or the whole district and all the capital assets that we have. I did ask those companies to provide a quote if they were to provide such a limited type study, which is more of an approximation of what it would cost to fix the middle school. I have quotes, but I'm not about to proceed unless the school committee wants me to spend that money. It'd probably be less than $10,000. So just looking for a direction on that, and that's why I had it go under the action agenda. So that's the first question. We do have CGKV, which is the firm that did the engineering for the roofs and did some of the original work at the middle school that never got completed because we derailed it to deal with the PCBs. We have Habib and Associates, which is another company, and I also asked the same company that engineered the replacement of the beam at the Macomber Elementary School. If you remember that beam split, we had a company engineer the design for the fix. So I did ask those three companies to give a quote, just in the hopes that if school committee wants to have access to that kind of information, obviously you do have to pay for information. I can tell you the quotes, the lowest quote is less than $10,000. One of the quotes is about 15, and one of the companies said, I don't want to deal with it. But I don't want to proceed with awarding a quote or asking somebody to do the work unless the school committee is in agreement that they want that information, because I'm not sure how the school committee feels about spending more money to get more information as to what it would cost to deal with the middle school.
I don't think we have a choice. Ultimately, at some point in time, something has to be spent in order for us to get a better picture of, do we proceed with that building or do we look at our other options? That's just my initial thoughts. You had something, I heard you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can plan unless we know what the potential dollar amount is to move in whatever direction are available to us. You know, close the building, keep the building, take all the PCBs out. We need to have somebody analyze what those different decisions look like financially before we can decide which road we're going to go down. You know, do we add on to the high school? Do we add on to the elementary school? I mean, without the numbers attached to any of those decisions, I don't see how do we decide. So I've been asking that we do this for several meetings. Every time this comes up, I ask the same question. We need somebody to come and tell us what are the options and what are the costs associated with them.
That's been pretty much what we've talked about for months.
Michael?
Yeah, when we did have that meeting with the consultants, I expressed my concern that we were going to be hiring consultants to gather information that we already had. We have proposals that date back to July 2011 that give a better insight as to what the next steps would cost for full removal. We did not choose all those steps in the immediate remediation. In fact, the authorization for cleaning up the middle school was done through a special request that we avoid the bidding process because of the emergency nature. It was emergency work that was proposed that we went forward with. We went forward with it based on estimates that were put together by a few different companies. I've asked that the original proposal that Pink put together and connected with the green repairs be presented to us so we could look at those unitized costs as the starting point before we hire a consultant. I was just concerned with having a new consultant come in and start with new figures. And more so, my concern was that the three consultants, when asked, indicated they did have no hazardous waste experience. Because this continues to be a hazardous waste remediation. We spoke with engineers that had no background and experience. So I stand on that. I hope I made that clear.
Dr. Colley?
One of the reasons why I understand where you're coming, Mike, but in the process of doing the work to get the building open, we discovered a lot of things that weren't even envisioned when those even first thoughts were put together. Some of them may still be accurate in terms of, how much it may cost to replace the windows or do the cement around the windows or underscore the cement around the doors and remove all of this, that, and the other thing. But we discovered some things, one of them being, that the air handling units may need to be replaced at the middle school. We still have some rooms that we have no clue why the numbers are still fluctuating in terms of the amount of PCBs in there. We've had several people in, and although I do agree with you that the engineers do not have that expertise directly, it does not preclude them from subcontracting and getting people with the right kind of expertise to come in and advise them. In other words, if you have somebody like CGKV or Habib Associates, because Habib Associates was very clear, hey, I will give you a quote, but if I have to bring other experts into the equation, that number may vary. Because they know they're going to need some information from other people who work more in that side of the field. But they can give you, if the thing comes that, hey, they're going to have to remove all the cement and brick around the windows, Habib and Associates can tell you how much that is, because that is part of their expertise, or CGKV or anybody else. So it would have to be a combination, but obviously one of the firms would have to be the lead. And in this kind of a game, a lot of these things are construction or engineering related. So I think asking an engineering firm to come up with some estimates would be more appropriate than asking a company that just does cleanup to give you an estimate as to what the engineering of that cleanup would be. So it would involve both kinds of companies.
Michael?
Thank you for that explanation for why I guess I'm not going to get the original reports that I've asked for in a number of times. I
thought you just had them. What were you referring to?
No, I have a form of bid that was put forward by LVIM Environmental Services. That's the company that was actually the low bidder for the middle school project. They were not awarded the contract, but they were hired as the subcontractor and actually made a lot of money on the PCB project. That's what I have here. So this is a form of a bid. So my files are incomplete. Dating back to July, I was not able to find the original study that was put together about options, and we chose from that long list. We paid for that study. We have an estimate on what it would cost to replace all the windows and remove all the PCBs. We've identified some more information, but we have those estimates. That's what I've continued to plead with.
Didn't we have that on a
Secondly, I would make mention of, we've listed some engineering firms here that not only don't have hazardous waste experience, but we've mentioned some contractors that took us from the original estimates of $1 million to clean up to well over $3 million. I would think that we might not want to consider those companies, because if they started out with a bid that was then tripled for whatever reason, and we lost control of it, I think we have to broaden our search for service companies. Who was the engineer that was, I know Pink was involved in this roofing project here at the high school in which beams were cut that weren't supposed to be cut. I know it came up earlier. I'd like to know who was responsible for cutting those beams, who was responsible for the oversight of that work.
That's coming up.
Before we hire any more engineers, I think we should start with the studies we have. As I said, you asked what this was. This is the LVI.
What's the date on those ones?
August 2011.
We received all of that stuff on CD that you had asked for.
Okay, so I'd like a copy of the CD.
You did get a copy of it, no?
I got it in the mail. It was mailed to my house.
It came from,
It was a video.
It was from us. No, it's a
It's a CD with a bunch of folders and a bunch of documents, and I looked at a couple of them.
It's basically all the files on the green projects from the beginning to the end of the...
My computer wasn't able to, I might have it here. I asked, and I was told it was a...
It's a DVD.
That it was a DVD.
Because the amount of, unbelievable. Days she was scanning that stuff
I'm
in.
sorry, CD, DVD.
It looks like a little round
You
this
have to
side
have
and
a
one
DVD
side.
drive. I don't know what Mr. Sullivan has. Usually says on the outside.
It's not in there, but, okay, well, again...
There is a DVD available.
Yeah, no, I received the DVD.
Okay.
It had no notes with it. It said green projects on it and a marker. So I responded, look, I put this in my computer and hit the CD reader, and it's not opening.
We did...
I called one fellow school committee person. I said, do you know what this is? I don't open things that I don't know what they are in my computer. And then I got an email back that said it was a DVD.
And that if you needed
to me, a DVD, you put in the DVD player and watch TV, and I said, look, I don't know what it is. There's no explanation. Again, flow of information.
Don't yell.
I'm not yelling.
I'm right here. Well, I can hear
you.
I understand it. I understand what you're
okay,
saying.
so if we've already received that...
If he's having a problem opening the DVD itself, how can we rectify that so that...
We did offer that it could be done here. We have plenty of computers that can open it.
So we can come in if it's a difficulty opening it home and use the computers here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On what we're talking about right now, middle school cost study to remediate PCBs, is there any direction that we want to vote to give Dr. Colley tonight to either, yes, go ahead and have one of these companies, hold on, one of these companies do the cost study, or do we not want to do this and do something else? Michael, I know you said you don't want to do it.
I would like to have a copy of the original proposal for the original work in writing delivered to me, okay? I don't need all the other information that's on a DVD, CD. I know how to open DVDs and CDs. This one didn't open. It didn't even say what was in it. So let's put that aside. If I, again, dating back to my original request, could have a paper copy of the original quotation that tells us how many dollars it would cost to take the windows out at the middle school, because if that school is going to continue to be open with that age group there, then we know what the cost a year ago was to take all the windows out and score everything, okay? We chose not to do it. We encapsulated, which gave us a 5-year window. Once I see that number, my memory serves me that I'm ready to make the decision now that it's time to close the building. So I've asked for that information. The dollars that I remember, another $5 million by the time we're done adding things up. So
I agree.
I'll look. I think before I can make a decision on another study, I want to be able to examine that.
That's
so
that's
Michael, why do we want to use numbers from those guys? You said a few minutes ago that. Why would we want to consult with the same guys that did the job?
They didn't do the job.
They were on site, they were there.
No, the report was done before
We even
we
did the
started
work.
any remediation. It was the first step. Pink did the job. Fuson O'Neill is the monitoring company that put the... Fuson O'Neill has extensive experience in dealing with hazardous waste. Correct? That's primarily what they do. We paid them for a report. The report is just about a year old. Based on the inflationary pressures of our time, which are very low, I think we can get a rough idea of what it would cost us to go in and make that a long-term occupancy. We expended $3 million to get up to 5 years if the EPA will allow us. We're now looking at it to beyond the 5-year point. And that's those numbers are in that report from Fuson O'Neill.
Those numbers, Mike, are only
Fuson O'Neill
a
did not...
small part of all that needs to be done to that school.
To the we chose off the menu. We've got a report that what it would take to get the building totally clean as they came across things. There may be some new details. I'm asking to see that report. Fuson O'Neill did not do the work. Fuson O'Neill did the
Study.
The study.
Can we get Michael all 5 of us, a copy?
You know, the easiest way to do this is if you would come to the office and we can go through the files that we have together so we can identify the pieces that you want to reference. We can make copies and bring them to the next school committee meeting. Then that way there is no...
I'd like them tomorrow so that I'm ready for 2 weeks from now.
Well, that's my point.
I understand...
Can you come in tomorrow? That's what he's saying, if you come in and make sure
I
we get
can
the right
pick up
ones.
the paper copy of the Fuson O'Neill study, one that listed all the costs.
That's my point, but it's in a big
And then
file, and I'm not exactly sure.
The next thing that Fuson O'Neill put was the form to bid. Okay, as we get to the next item, this is something else I've asked
What was
you.
the date on that one?
This is the blank form to bid. Fuson O'Neill...
Is there a date?
Oversaw August 8th. No, that's the proposed start date. There is not a date.
All right, so it's probably...
It's in July or
It was
August.
July.
Okay.
That's why I thought that was late.
Okay.
It was July.
All right, okay, Carolina?
The last time we had this discussion, I said, you know what, we're going to wait, we're going to be here, and we're just putting off something that we need the information. We just need the information, so let's just get it so that we can move forward with planning what we're going to do. Because without the information on the table, we can't move forward. I'm just tired of sitting here talking about it and waiting for what? I don't understand what we're waiting for. I just don't understand why we're not saying, go, find somebody to come. I was in that meeting with those 3 people. They were talking about a myriad of things, and for me, it's not just the PCBs in the middle school. It's a plan for how we're going to move forward with all of our schools and all of our students and where we're going to put them. The PCB issue is an issue that needs to be dealt with, but that's not the only thing we need to look at to make these decisions. We need a lot of other stuff.
You asked us.
Hi. What Carolina just said, I was actually thinking as well, that this seems to be a very big decision versus just the PCBs, but what we're going to do with all of our schools moving forward, what's the plan? And I'm not sure how the process works, but would it make sense to have a committee to just look at all of the different options? And I know adding a committee adds another level, but if you have the first thing, it seems to be that there's this PCB, should there be this study? Well, what is the cost that goes around that? Is it too high that we don't want to do it because it's just going to add expenses where we don't have any money to pay for things? If we already know that the cost is cost prohibitive based on studies we already have, if that's
Well, he did say the lowest bid came in under 10,000.
But I mean,
Is that what she's talking about?
no,
remediation.
Right, in
No,
regards to the
sorry.
remediation,
I gotcha.
if we already know that what we currently have is cost prohibitive to fix the school, then the likelihood of us fixing it is small, so even putting $10,000 may not be worth it if we're pretty confident. And I don't know that answer, so I think the first thing would be is what do we already have, and based on that, is there a likelihood that we would actually go ahead and fix it? If there's a likelihood, then yes, we should spend the $10,000, I would think, to do that. But I think kind of having all of the options laid out in front makes it easier to make that decision, which I'm not privy to that information. But moving forward in the long-term plan, I think having a committee might be helpful so that someone can bring the information to you, so you can have it in X, Y, Z, and have it all laid out in a clear, concise form.
Thank you. Ultimately, the cost of remediation of the middle school is cheaper than a new school. So I think anything we do is cost prohibitive at this point. Anything we do is too much money. So I think I agree with you, though.
Does anyone have off the top of their head what the window replacement cost initially was, Mike?
Well, the window replacement was within the 2.5.
No, that's why we went with just the two roofs.
No, the green, but initially, before
Initially,
the
when we
remediation
first
was
got
within the
until we found out that everybody was
supposed
going
to be
after
three.
It
windows.
was the three. It was the middle school and the two roofs, and we pulled the windows out when they
Yeah, that was
found-
before PCB, that was
Yeah.
just
No,
trying new
even,
windows.
even before the PCBs, we pulled it
Yeah, that was
out
before.
because we
remediation,
found out
anything.
that
That just
the-
included replacing the
seen-
windows and the labor. but-
I seem to remember us talking here and discussing, and my memory might be off, but discussing that the middle school project alone would be the 2.5 for the windows. So I'm going to throw out there that the window remediation was about 2.5. And so we pulled it off the table and decided to do the two pieces instead of just the one.
Well, our 1.5 went to 3.2, so that 2.5 is probably about 5 million.
Right.
So,
So what are
Still
we?
cheaper than building a new school.
What is the
That's
what is the feeling tonight on this? Are we moving to the next action agenda item, or is there a motion on I've lost my place on a cost study?
where is the money's coming from?
And I did check with the town on this. The PCB remediation fund or borrowing that was done included funding in it to do the study for this built into it. I did check with the town treasurer, with George Foster, and he said there is enough money for that in there. So basically, whatever we spend, we charge to that account, and it will be
So
part of.
nothing's coming out of our 13 budget to pay for
No.
the study.
No.
Okay, so what do you guys want to do? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the study.
Is there a second on it from anybody?
Second.
Discussion? I know we've been discussing this, but
Dr. Kelly, just want to be clear on what your study is going to entail, because we've asked many times
I was
over.
going to ask this.
Feasibility of remediation at the middle school to zero PCBs, closing the school totally. So that's not even going to be part of the study?
No,
On
because.
what are we going to do with all of our buildings?
Okay, let me explain if you want to do that bigger study, which would be number 4 on the agenda. That's a whole different story. This is a limited study because the money we borrowed can only be directed to PCB issues at the middle school. So we can't expand
What we do with all of our schools is a PCB issue.
I know, but you can't use the borrowed money to do a study that goes beyond the middle school, that includes those other issues. It's a much bigger issue if you go the route
Well, we already
of,
have that information. That's what Mr. Sullivan was getting at. If we're just going to limit it to remediation of PCBs in the middle school, we have that information. It may be a year old, but we have it.
my concern is, and again, I'm going like we all are from our recollection of those discussions, and if I remember correctly, what Mike is referring to, Mr. Sullivan's referring to, is stuff that we did or stuff that they gave us before they even went into the school to start tearing things out, including the ceilings. So it didn't even include what we're going to do with the ceilings now that they've been removed. You know, just to replace the ceilings back. I don't recall, and I may be wrong, but I don't recall that we had estimates as to how much removal and disposal would be of the dirt around the school. I don't recall that those things were in it, and I think...
It was like 1 inch, I think they gave a
But certainly
1
the
inch.
ceiling tiles, to replace those ceiling tiles, that definitely wasn't in there.
I know that wasn't in there. But and
But
other
it's been done
things like the
already.
ventilation
Even if it's not
system.
in the study, it's already been done. We did it.
No, but to
That's why we
replace
spent
them.
money.
No, to put them back.
No, replace.
Oh, put them back.
That's what I'm saying. How much would it cost to put the building back together after we finish doing everything that the EPA would want us to do in the building? Because we do have from Fuss and O'Neill, here's the things that we as the expert in PCB remediation would expect the EPA to ask us to do. The question is, in order to do those things, how much would it cost? And yeah, we have bits and pieces of some of those, but not all of them.
Now, I can recall standing in the music room, and I think Mr. Viveras was with me, when O'Neill,
Mhm.
Fuss and O'Neill, stood there, got the beard, I don't remember, was he an O'Neill?
Oh,
No.
no, he's the guy
Dr.
from the
Miller.
lab.
The scientist
guy
that
from
works
the
for
lab.
them.
Yes.
I can recall him standing in the music room, looking up the ceiling and say, before we had any of the studies down, and he came out of his mouth, we will never rid the school of all the PCBs because it's actually in
In the
the
cement.
beams of the school.
In the cement.
So we're talking about spending more money on finding out something we know cannot be zero PCBs.
Well, I don't mean to be zero PCBs. I mean that we comply with all the EPA requirements in the long term. Like Mike said,
They say zero, though.
no, I don't say
That
zero.
EPA lady that was here, you have to have zero.
You have to remove all source materials, which is a different question
And
from
we have 2 rooms that we keep
contaminated
fluctuating. We have no
materials.
idea what the source material is.
Those are some of the questions. How do you deal with that in the long term if you're going to keep the building as a school? And it may be dealing with the ventilation system, and that's why I'm saying I don't think we have all the answers or all the estimates. That's why I would like to bring somebody in to give us a better
I
idea.
think the information we have is
Mike
limited.
Mike did have his hand up, so Michael and then Tony, and then we're going to call this one.
I'd just like to read from your presentation, October 21st, 2011. It's appropriate to read this because the agenda item is, I'm adjusting to our new...
Cost study to fully remediate PCBs is what it is.
Okay, so here, we had 2 options that were being looked at, option 1 and option 2. Although we do not yet know the cost of option 1, expanding, renovating the Mackin High School and turning the middle school into a town building, or option 2, remediating, renovating the middle school. We hope that with the help of the School Building Authority, the expense of improving our facilities and programs can be a healthy investment for the town in the long run. I would suggest an additional article to be included in special town meeting or the annual town meeting to request a feasibility cost study to generate estimates that would be needed for the town to inform us as to which option to pursue. At that time, a year ago, you estimated the costs of studies to be option 1, $150,000, option 2, $100,000. Here tonight, we're talking about $10,000, $25,000, another study further down the program. That's my concern, is opening up Pandora's box of studies as costs, especially where we already have the information. So I thought this would help support the fact that we've looked at these things. I don't know what the delay is to answer the question put forward by a previous speaker, but this is what we were told a year ago the studies would cost us. I mean, again, there's 2 options here. We've outlined estimated costs for studies. It's an awful lot more money than this agenda item here, so we're trying to peel the onion to get a little bit of money now because it's available to us, and I just think we need to have a bigger total picture. And I believe that is in the report that was done by our hazardous materials environmental science company named Fuss & O'Neill at quite an expense previously.
Tony?
So,
I'll pass.
Just in order to reference that, I know that, it's kind of hard to keep to an agenda when other things keep jumping in the middle of it. Those studies, the $100,000 to $150,000, would be the bigger study that, I'm dancing around because I know it's a big amount of money and that we cannot use the PCB funding that has already been reserved for just the middle school. When I'm talking about a study to see about what would happen if we close one school or expand the others, you're talking about a comprehensive study that goes across all our programs and all our facilities that would involve a firm like NESDEC. Now, I have contacted other districts who have done this, and that is not outside of the realm of possibility in terms of the cost of a major study such as that. So when you're asking, how big is this study, this is a very limited slice to decide, do we go with, let's pursue fixing the middle school, and then if we fix the middle school, are we going to fix the other buildings? Then we're talking about just providing a bit of information to tell us what's the next piece of information we need. And if we're looking at all the buildings and all the programs and where do we put them, now you're talking about a major study.
So we're just delaying the inevitable. I mean, if we already know the outcome of because we've already done the study, so we're going to throw money because it's there, we're going to throw money at it, get a study with the answers we already know so we can have a bigger study. We need to know as a table, and I think Carolina mentioned that earlier, we need to know what all of our avenues are. Do we close this, add on to here, turn it over to the town, consolidate junior high school, build a junior senior high mega complex? That's what we need to know, not what we already know. It's going to cost way too much money.
You could skip the initial step of figuring out how much it would cost to deal with the middle school to make it usable, and just go for the big study in which they would include that. They
And
could
that
do
money,
that.
I think that's being held is, the middle school is the driving force to whether we're going to rearrange this district. I think that money is able to be tapped into a larger study because it's the middle school PCBs that's causing us to even think of the district as the Big Apple.
Tony, last one.
No study from a year ago or 18 months ago, as part of that study, has replaced the ceilings that were taken out. Scarify cement, do all that stuff. All these issues came up after those reports. We might have a generic number out there to replace, 200, however many windows at so much per window, la-di-da-di-da, and that was $1 million or $2 million. We may have that number, but is that number enough to make you decide that we're not going to put another penny into that school and that we should go ahead and advocate to spend $45 million on a new building? Hey, I'm all for it, but I don't think I think we need to. Eric said it. The middle school is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We don't have that information. Is there some information available that maybe this consultant can certainly use and help get us some number? But I don't think we could go back a year, 18 months. I don't think those numbers would even be considered what we know now. And a lot of these things didn't come up. Those were all before the thing started.
How much money is in that account?
Depending on whether we're accounting for the things that are pending or that we have been asked to pay for that we haven't agreed to pay for.
The study, how much do they allot for our study to be done? It's already paid for in that warrant.
At one point in time, the number got thrown out, and it wasn't by us. It was $100,000, and it was literally a number off the cuff by Mike Coughlin, who said, "Oh, we'll just throw an extra $100,000 in there in
So
case
there's
there's a study."
$100,000 to do a study.
My concern, and I understand, if I could see my way to using that money for a big study,
But you
I
said it
would.
can't be used for anything other than that. So if it's not $100,000, where'd that money go?
Well, the issue is,
There's no
that was
issue.
Mike Coughlin.
It's $100,000 or it's not $100,000.
Wait a minute. Mike Coughlin suggested that number to go on top of the 3.1. That's why it became a 3.2
Yep.
bonding issue. The problem was, when we were putting the bonding together, we asked bond counsel to tell us under what legal authority to go ahead and do the bonding. And they used some specified language from the law that said, for this kind of a crisis, we will let you bond or borrow for. Now, my understanding after talking to bond counsel was you could only use it for anything dealing with the PCBs only at the middle school and only the PCBs, not for anything else. So that's where I'm saying, yeah, Mike Coughlin may have, you know, in trying to think ahead of the curve when trying to put together a warrant article, he said, 3.1 plus 100. He wasn't thinking of what.
The feasibility of whether we use the middle school or not.
I don't know. We could ask bond counsel if it would be.
We want to do a big total picture of where our options are, like our citizen said.
If I could get bond counsel to agree that we can tap this money for that, I can go back to George and say, hey, do we have enough money to do this? I wouldn't see a problem with that.
Can I request that we table this until he asks Treasurer whether we can have $100,000 to do the major study rather than just throw in 10 grand just because we want to spend it?
But that major study, the first thing anyone would want to know is what our plans are
And that's
for
going
the
to be
middle
part
school.
of, but that's going to be part of the whole study. That's part of the 100. Why spend 10,000 and then have to go spend another 100,000?
Because if we spend 10 to tell us that it's cost effective to repair the middle school and bring it up to snuff and do all the ADA issues and every other issue, maybe we, whatever, I'm just throwing a number out, 10 million, 20 million, 25 million, maybe it's $20 million to bring that school up to date.
About that.
PCB
right.
remediation, fix all its issues, turn it into a modern building, 25 million. Well, that's still half of a new building. Maybe that's the way the town would want to go.
But you have a 50-year-old building. But you have a 50-year-old building that needs to be replaced in 10 to 15 years.
But we still need that initial
I
information.
haven't really said anything. I actually, and I've said to you guys, all right, you're the last one, and I've let you go because honestly,
It just brings up more and more.
well, honestly, you've got
It's a good discussion, though.
You've got my mind thinking. So at this point, we need to do something at that middle school. Do I think 2 weeks is going to make a difference? At this point, I don't. So I actually am curious if we can use that money and do a larger study. Because initially, that was our intent of that.
Yes, it was.
Was to do a larger study, and if a larger study is going to encompass the smaller pieces, my concern, while I would like to do I want to see what is it going to cost for us to replace those ceiling tiles. I want to see what is it going to cost for us to get that school. If we're going to go into that school and fix it, then we need to go in and fix it. It needs to be ADA compliant. There's so many things that are issues with that school. But my concern is if we go in and piecemeal, and I love Westport, but it's a little quirky. If you go in, there's no reporters here that are going to quote that. If you
They'll watch the tapes.
They'll watch the tapes.
If you
Sorry.
go in and you do a small study that comes back and says, oh, it's only going to cost you, because we know this happened with the PCBs.
Yes.
It's only going to cost you $50,000 to go in, and I'm not saying they'll come back with that. Then word is going to get through town that says, it's only going to cost you $50,000 to fix that school. Why didn't you do that? So I have a little bit of a concern with the smaller study because of the way it's going to be interpreted. People don't always get a full understanding of what was done in a study. However, if bond counsel comes back and says, absolutely not, then I would absolutely like to go forward and do what we can. So, would you agree to pull your motion until next
Pull
week?
it, but I'm just going to say it again.
Hesitantly?
Yeah, we had this discussion 2 meetings ago. And
No,
here
I
we
agree.
are.
I
And here
agree
we
with
are.
you.
And we still.
But I want to have that.
But I
But
want.
there's new information of $100,000 sitting in an account that we can tap into, hopefully, and that's what we need to know.
But I do think that, I mean, if we can't afford to pull that larger study out of our budget. It is just not going to happen. But if we can tap into that and get a larger study and get a bigger picture.
The whole district.
And get it done, that's what we really need to be able to make any of these decisions. having some of the smaller information is going to help us, but it isn't going to give us the information.
Yeah.
However, if we can't do that, then I think, then yeah, we need to move forward and do something smaller. Because I'm not opposed to it at all. I just want to see, you've got me wondering, because I was at one of those meetings, the selectman, when she talked about the specifics, even down to the green stuff, and she kind of, sounds to me like she even twisted things to get, I don't know. So I'd like to make sure that we can even do that.
And that's,
Bless you.
above and beyond all of it, I wanted us to have that discussion and have it in public, because I do believe we need to know what the middle school is going to do in terms of cost and, you know, how far we can get with how much money we spend in it. But I do also believe that we have to look at the district as a whole. I mean,
Right. There's two
the
things that we
town,
need
the
to
town capital improvement committee.
He has money over there too that they're looking to give, so.
Well, but they're also keep asking us to come up with a number. You know, how much
Right.
is it going to cost to do anything in the district? I'm going like, you know, you don't just pull a number out of the sky. You have to have people who know how to come up with those numbers, come in and do that study, but we don't have the money to do that. There is some money at the capital improvement committee, so that we may
To
have
help us
some
fund
money
the
there.
study maybe as well.
But I want to have, again, the blessing of the school committee next time Tony goes to the capital improvement committee to say, hey, we would like to use some of this money if we need it to do that big study, because it is.
I just don't, we came to the town at a town meeting and had hard facts, just like we tell people to come back when they have the right numbers, of a complete study of the district, and recommended whatever it might be, new school, old school, whatever it is, and we had hard facts. I know the town would step up and say, you did your due diligence, you're fiscally responsible, we'll give you the money.
No, that's fine, and I think your request to table is fair. We haven't really talked about this, I mean, I know you said you brought it up a few times, but we really haven't had a good discussion about this in a while, because we've had a lot of new stuff, opening school stuff. So let's move on to the...
And just to add to that, we can
What?
also look...
She pulled her motion.
I withdraw
Yeah.
my motion.
Yeah,
We can look into that DVD and
sorry, Karen.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have no problem pulling
any
those pieces,
numbers
because
that we have,
and any study, whether it's the limited study or the big study, will want to take a look at those initial figures, which I don't have a problem.
I'll take a look through there, and I know the time frame. I'll see if I can find what you're looking for, Mike. All right, Westport Middle School quarterly monitoring, did we get those numbers?
We only got the wipes. I think the only room that got a hit above a one microgram in was the guidance office. That has kept coming back as too high anyway. But we did not yet get the monies, not the monies, the numbers for the airs.
Okay. So
That
we're still
study,
waiting on the classrooms.
right, that study was done on Friday the 28th. We did get, again, I went out to 3 companies, got quotes for doing just a monitoring for one round. And my next question to the school committee, and again, that was Fuss and O'Neill, you have the 2 quotes that I did get, the 3rd company did not answer. But I would like to put it out to bid. I know Mike had suggested we do this. Again, not knowing some of the discussions over the summer where they were going to lead with the middle school, I figured we'd do one more, but at least put it out to a quote. But now, if we do the next 4, because it's 4 in a year, we could put out a bid for a 1-year round of testing. Because I don't think even if we do the study, I don't think we'll be ready to break ground or do anything else to the middle school for at least a year. Because you're talking approvals by boards and town meetings. So I think
Most of these places use the same labs. It would just be somebody different coming in and doing the study.
basically that's how I worded the quotes. So they came close. I mean, 12.5 and 14.8. So I don't know, maybe that the person they were assigning to do the study in one company versus another got paid more per hour. So those were the two. But I'm imagining that if you multiply that by 4, it'll be close, I hope, to the number that you would get in a whole year worth of monitoring.
And that guidance room office, that's one of the offices up front.
That has been a problem since all year last year, basically. So I'm still waiting on the errors. Once we get that, we'll forward them to you. We just got the wipes today. I mean, I found out when I got out of the meeting with the union this afternoon. So
But if this round of numbers come back, you know, if the levels are maintaining, staying where they are, I mean, at some point, do we ratchet back the testing to maybe do it 3 times this year instead of 4 times?
Do a third, a third, a third?
Well, I mean, if the numbers,
well, it doesn't.
if the numbers consistently stay low, and in the rooms that we've,
That has to be part of our long-term plan that we present to the EPA for them to approve.
I mean, as long as every room gets done once a year.
Well, assuming I think if that's what we want to try throwing at the EPA, then I think they will come back and say, based on your previous samples, we feel that's adequate, or based on the fact that it's a school, no.
Does it change the price at all if we do a third, a third, a third? Or?
I probably would, because it may reduce it a little bit. A lot of the cost is the media and the lab and the turnaround time, but you do have some cost incurred because they send somebody from the company that's doing the setup of the equipment and all that, and they may be able to rent equipment, because usually they don't have it in the back of the truck. They say, hey, I got so many areas to test. They'll rent the equipment. So doing it in thirds versus it's one less visit, maybe a little cheaper.
it should be 25% cheaper.
I'd be curious to see what our first samples come out too, because we went through the summer too, so,
Yeah.
and we know heat can affect it, so, I mean, it looked good the end of the year last year, but the middle school was not used as much, so the air circulation was a little different.
It was kind of nice spring, so we had the windows open.
Yeah. So what are you looking for on,
I just,
Like to
we
make a
have.
motion?
Michael?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the superintendent to put out for bid the monitoring for the Westport Middle School for the balance of fiscal year FY13.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion on that?
Is the bid going to ask for quarterly, or are you going to explore the possibility of?
I believe there's 3 more quarters.
It'd be 3 more quarters. I mean, that was how we had set it up in the Fuss and O'Neill report, and, we didn't talk about this, so I would feel a little leery of changing
the EPA,
it.
when they were down, I mean, they told us that, it all depended on those numbers, how often you would continue to monitor.
We haven't even submitted the final report to the EPA, so,
Yeah, I'm sure they've
I
moved
mean,
on
we
to other
could,
things.
but, again, that would be a decision the school committee would make, to either go with the quarterlies or the...
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, WMS expenditure analysis versus claims.
This is to your question as to how much money is in that account. Right now, we've been tracking this, and we spent just a little over $3 million. We have some pending charges in terms of financial advisory services, which is what what people like the bond counsel charge us. We have the late fees, and we have questions as to the, I believe there was basically the claim that they undercharged us for the trash cans, and I know we have a question, so we haven't paid that, and we have
They've
not paid for the late
undercharged us?
fees. In the original, they were supposed to charge us $1,000 more per trash can. I brought back the issue that we had a couple of trash cans left there for a long, long time that perhaps we didn't even need. So these are 2 areas that are in contention.
And they also said they were going to be only going to New Jersey, and I think they made the choice to go to Michigan.
No, the Jersey one would not take both PCBs and asbestos, and that was one of the things we found when we started tearing things up, was that there was both PCBs and asbestos, and therefore had to go to a different special place that took both.
Michael, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so as we're discussing the Westport Middle School expenditure report related to the PCB remediation project, what I've asked for previously, and this isn't the type of analysis I've requested, that I wanted to see it in the form of the bid. In other words, we had a form bid, and each invoice here is a vendor. I'd like to know, for instance, decontamination work for all non-porous items. This company bid $204,000. I'd like to know on line item 1 of the bid, how much should we pay for that? There's many concerns I have, and the only way I can resolve my concerns is to have an appropriate analysis. So again, I'm requesting an analysis that would follow the 6+ line items, because there's some sub-line items as well, in the bid form. Here we had a bid for $1,298,000 from a company we chose not to hire. We hired a company that came in with a higher bid. We then had that company that we hired, Triumvirate, bill us for overtime. Yet they were subject to the Compass bid list, which says no overtime would be charged. That's where it starts to get a little foggy in terms of, did they go by Compass bid process, or did they honor their bid? Well, we know it was neither. Another example of an analysis, and this is probably helps make it clearer, here from Spry Moving Company. We had a total estimated price of $64,598, which was approved on 8/12. I don't know when the bid came in. So a total estimated price of $64,598. Yet I see we paid Spry over $100,000. So again, that analysis is going to help me to really balance my concerns for where the bids were at, what we ended up spending. And that analysis would follow the original bids, and I'd like to see that in writing versus a oral presentation, as requested previously.
Mike, I know you've requested that previously. I have checked with people in MASBO, Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials. One, those were not bid documents, they were estimates, number one. Now, I do know you want a breakdown, line by line, of what was done, when it was done, how come it cost.
Can I just as a point of information, the heading on this paper says form of bid. I've heard the story before about it's an estimate, it's not a bid, but it says form of bid. So that's just point of information. Please don't try to correct that again. It says it, form of bid, not form of estimate.
Mike, if you want to go through each one
I do not want to go through, and I feel that this committee has made that request, not just myself, that we had a bid proposal. We asked the supervisor of the business office to tell us, okay, we had bids, how much did we spend for cleaning and balancing of all HVAC units? Did we spend the $121? I don't know which company here did cleaning and balancing of HVAC units. If it was over the form of bid estimate, well, I'd still like to see that.
And that's where we requested a business.
We've requested that before, that analysis.
Works to handle it all, and
If I remember correctly.
Oh, I know I've asked you at least 3 times to put the superintendent duties off to Dr. Condon and handling the business matters.
That's old hat.
Well, it's not old hat. I did ask that
Well,
many
you did.
times.
You did.
And
That's what I'm saying.
since we don't have a clerk of works, we need to break down on what we spent. We went from 1.5 to 3.2. Where did it go? Not just, here's a stack of invoices, look for it if you want. You are considered the business manager, correct?
I don't disagree with you. And
Okay.
however, when you're asking for an analysis of that nature, it's kind of like asking the banker to audit their own records. I don't mind, and this is where I was going before I was interrupted. I have asked MASPO if they would allow us to contract with them, small amount of money, to go through and provide you that analysis from somebody else that's not me, because I feel like, I've been banged a lot on this one, and I want somebody else to be able to come in and say, here's the situation that this district faced, here's the amount of money that was spent, and here's how it was spent, so that they can come to you, give you that analysis without what I feel is some conflicts of, what the superintendent did and didn't do. And again, if you go back and you look at the minutes of those bunch of meetings that we had that summer, there's some, how should I say this, disagreements as to how things were interpreted coming out of those meetings. One of them being, everybody was saying, and this is my interpretation, I'm not saying this is what you guys intended, but I felt people were saying, we're spending too much money on these consultants, we shouldn't have them, while I suggested that we keep Pink & Company to be the clerk of the works. And basically, I feel I was told, don't continue paying them, get rid of them, and then I was told to be the clerk of the works. I'm not a clerk of the works, so I'm sorry. We did agree that Fuss and O'Neill would oversee the work of Triumvirate, make sure the timesheets were done correctly, make sure that they accounted for the people they had, the time that they had. That was all done. I reviewed that work. People still seem to think that
has a recollection of us asking for a clerk of works on this job.
I'll pick up the invoices tomorrow if you can make copies by then. I'd prefer they not be loaded on a DVD due to my previous history of not opening up DVDs on my computer. But I'll pick up the paper copies of all invoices related to the Westport Middle School. I'm against hiring anyone to do this evaluation because it's simply there's 6 line items and there's one page that amounts to $3 million. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20. It might be 30 invoices, so we can do that. We'll take the 30 invoices and we'll compare them to, if you could get the triumvirate form of bid quote, because this is the low bid that I have here. We have to move this forward, as previous speaker has mentioned. What is the delays? Well, I'm ready to move forward, so.
Okay, let's move on to the, actually, I think we should table the facilities program study.
I'll find out if it's possible to do it from the bond. Yep.
Green projects building subcommittee report, high school punch list.
In terms of the Green Projects Building Subcommittee report, we have posted, I think, about 5 meetings over the course of the summer. We've only had a couple of meetings where the members of the committee, there were enough of us to have an actual subcommittee meeting. So I can report what I have sat through in terms of report of meetings where Mike Dort and I represented the district on a weekly basis, meetings with the architect, the clerk of the works, the Pink & Company representative, and representatives from the 2 companies. One was Cape Way, and the other one is SOM. Cape Way did the roof at the Macomber Elementary School. Just to give you some background there, both bids came under estimates. The Cape Way company banged it out in just about, actually actually less time that they estimated it would take. There were a few issues. There was a small punch list. Of course, it's a less complex roof, smaller roof. We do have a few ongoing issues that are being taken care of under warranty. One of them is, while they were ripping off some of the roofing material over there at the Macumber, some of the nails ended up on the ground, and they picked up a lot of them, but obviously they've missed some because our lawnmowers have found them in the tires. So we're still sending them bills every time we get a roofing nail in the tires.
Have we gone through with those magnet things? And I mean, my
They
concern
did that.
is the kids.
They did that. I mean, obviously they've missed some, or maybe our rubber tires are better at picking up nails than
And we've taken another sweep through since before school started.
they have taken, I believe, 1, 2, 3 sweeps trying to get them because they don't want to keep paying for tires. They had some issues with one of the drain pipes in the flat area of the roof over there. Finally, they had to cut a piece and replace a piece. That seems to be working. So basically, we're considering the Macumber roof done, completed, now under warranty. Like I said, it came in under budget. It was dealt with rather quickly. There weren't many issues over there. The high school roof is a lot more complex. There are many different roofs built over many different time periods, different elevations, different additions to the building. Some had many layers, some had a few layers. Some we discovered, before this even started, the architect made test drills through the old system to find out what it was made of. We missed one small section over in the top area of the high school towards the science wing, room 315, basically. We missed that had a whole different decking system. So when they start removing the old part of the roof, basically the workers punched their holes through that roof. We had them start on that end of the building and then move to the cafeteria area of the building because it was, we're trying to make sure that they completed the roof in the academic areas before school started now in September. So we gave them the gymnasium area to start with and then the cafeteria, superintendent's area, and those sections in the end of May and June. One of the first things we discovered, and I'll try to be accurate, we found that SOM needed a lot more supervision than many companies, including Capeway. Like when Capeway did the work at the Macumber, we did not see as many issues coming up on a day-to-day basis. So the clerk of the works from Pink & Company basically spent a very large portion of their time, if not all of their time, here. And one of those days that he was supervising the crew on this end of the building, there was another crew at the gym side of the building removing the old decking material. And they did not follow protocols, they did not follow what was specified and started using power tools that were basically told they shouldn't have used. And by the time the clerk of the work went from one end of the building to the other, after he was done supervising the work that was being done here, we discovered that they had used, one, power equipment they shouldn't have used, and two, that they had damaged the underdecking, the metal decking, in the gym area. We did call them, made them stop. We did bring in instructional engineer. We had them put in a new metal decking and then continue the work they needed to do in that area, while at the same time they doing the cleanup of the dust and debris that went into the building from there. Again, we brought in engineers. We contacted the EPA. They were involved. They approved the cleanup and abatement of any asbestos contamination on that end of the building. We did charge back to them for the additional money to fix the roof. We charged back to them the materials that were lost in terms of the sports equipment. We did charge back to them the additional time that our staff spent dealing with it, and they even charged some of the time from the architect, the Pink & Company, and the clerk of the works back to that company, because it was their mistake. It was their error. So we had a couple of other areas where they, one, like I mentioned, one part of the roof where it was not their fault. We just did not know that there was, it didn't appear in any prints. When they start removing the old roofing material, they punched a hole in 315. We shared in the cost of that repair, because obviously nobody could have anticipated that it was there. So that was done. There were other areas where they weren't as diligent and vigilant in closing up for the night. So if they would remove part of the old system, they needed to secure it. And if you remember this summer, we had a lot of thunderstorms with a lot of wind. And if they didn't secure it right, then we had, as we found out, that certain areas of the building got rained or leaks into the building that we didn't expect to get. Again, those mistakes, those errors were charged back to them to fix them, to, put in new ceiling tiles, to fix whatever had been damaged. The other issue that we found with SOM was that, we had given them a 10-week window to finish the work, which would have caught the last couple of weeks in June and the 8 weeks of the summer, and perhaps even because we started right at the end of May, it could have been that they would finish before the end of summer, and we kept seeing that they didn't have enough people on the roof. We kept asking them to bring more people in, which then basically we told them, hey, you need to get this finished because we don't want drilling and hammering and noise up on the roof when we're trying to bring in the kids and do school. So we did indicate that they needed to complete the work, so they start coming in Saturdays and stay until 9 o'clock at night. That got them to the point where at least the drilling, the noise, was almost finished by the time school started. In fact, the staff would tell you that the 3 days before school started, where we were doing staff development here, in some cases we had to move people around the building to get away from the noise because they were still finishing up the last few pieces of the major construction work. That left between then and just about a couple of weeks ago, touch up some of the work along the edges of the roof to put the metal caps on. There's an access like hatch, not just a hatch, it's like a door built into the roof that they needed to finish. And then in the last 2 weeks, they were given a punch list. The engineer comes through, takes a look. The engineer comes through. They brought in an additional consultant for what they call an envelope consultant, building envelope consultant, and Firestone, who basically makes the product of what this roof is. It's a new material called TPO. It's not the old rubber material. It's supposed to be better. It's becoming the industry standard. That company came in, walked the roof as well. All three of those, the two engineers plus Firestone, gave to the construction company punch list. You have in your packets the punch list from the main engineer. We thought it was a very extensive and well done punch list. SOM has indicated that they have completed the punch list. There are several items outstanding. They had ordered some doors that have not come in that need to be replaced. We did discuss that it would be prudent in a couple of areas of the roof to install some, what they call those things? Little tubes to allow overflow. Scuppers. If the drains get plugged, the scuppers will allow water to escape the roof.
New word.
So that's still outstanding. And then once those are installed and the doors are installed, the engineer will come back and make sure the punch list is done. If it's not done, obviously, we're not done with this company until the whole punch list is done, but we're pretty much completed with the roofs. We've had several big storms and no water has come into the building, so knock on wood, it's pretty much a completed project. Again, even with all the craziness of the errors that they made, the project will be coming in a little bit under budget. And again, for the town's benefit, the bids originally came in under budget, so it's going to be even less than they expected to spend on these two roofs. So that's one bit of good news for the town. So we did have a meeting today because we had enough people to review the punch list and where we were at and the pieces that are still outstanding. And we'll probably have to have another meeting once the engineers come through and make sure that both the doors are installed, that the scuppers are installed, and that the punch list is complete. Then we'll hopefully have another meeting. There was a discussion as well as to the extended construction schedule caused Pink & Company to incur additional costs. We instructed them to go back and look at the contracts and perhaps put a proposal to the school committee for additional funding. That would be included in the budget, but it would have to come to school committee for an approval. Did I miss anything, Mrs. Africano?
Anything? Any questions on all this? I'll add, I think the roof looks very nice, by the way, through all the bumps and everything else, it sounds like. And the grounds do look quite clean, and it seemed to happen pretty fast.
Because we were holding on to their money.
Yeah, because it wasn't clean at all. Michael?
I just wanted to know, are we moving into the request? I followed you. I followed along.
Today,
the last thing you mentioned was Pink's looking for more money.
At the budget, at the building subcommittee meeting today,
We're still
we
on
told
the
them we were not going to.
We haven't got to that yet, though.
Oh,
We're still
sorry.
on the roof.
If you want, we can go there.
We're still
was
on, do you have?
'cause it's
we're still-
next.
We are still on the roof.
I know.
It's
That's
next on the
Well,
list.
that's what he mentioned in the last thing. So.
Yeah.
So is there anything else on the roof?
So there is a holdback, we do have that, and that won't get released. The
Yes.
final payment won't get released until
Everything is done.
our people go up there and make sure it's all done.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and let's go on to, since you mentioned it, the Pink & Company request for,
The building subcommittee meeting did listen to Pink & Company and their request. We did send them back to look at contracts. We did send them back to make a proposal that would then come to the school committee. So at this point, I don't have anything to report.
did you have anything else on that?
There was a,
Well, yeah,
Because you-
my question was on the request from
Yeah,
Pink.
that's what he's talking
That was
about.
to the school committee, and that would have been my input, as to what did the building committee consider, and so that's what you've asked. You know, I think it's what I thought we had originally said when this came forward, when he made a presentation, is that, you know, it's in the contract. And part of what he was contracted for was to select an appropriate contractor. So he was part of the process that hired this contractor. He assured us that that his staff would be on site at all times, and it sounds like they were.
Oh, they were.
And with your explanation, it seems like they kept them very busy. I just, sounds like one of those situations where they, on their next job, their next bid, wherever it might be, they want to cover, some unanticipated expenses. That's how I feel business works. But I guess we're not taking that up, even though it's on the agenda tonight. Because we're going to wait to hear back from which I support, waiting to hear back from.
No, I think we need to wait and hear from.
I don't know if it'll be, again, I know the doors are on back order. I don't know how long it'll take for them to put the doors in, and I don't know how long it'll take them to do the scuppers so that we can clear out the punch list. My expectation would be once those things are done and the punch list is crossed off the list, we'll come back to the school committee, because I don't want to, it's hard enough to get, I think there's like 8 people in the building subcommittee, and it's hard to even get 5 of them to come together, so I don't want to have a bunch more meetings if we're not done with the work that needs to be done.
It seems like there's a lot of issues getting those meetings together. Do we have the wrong people on that board or committee, or?
There were people that were, some of it is, people with different schedules were trying to meet during the day, different members, different schedules.
I'm on that committee, and I can tell you, I made the meeting today because it happened to fall on a Wednesday, which is school committee day, and I did not go to Boston. But a 1 o'clock in the afternoon meeting is not a meeting that I would routinely be able to show up for, so.
Jim Bernard was originally on it. Brian Balcourt was originally on it. So we've gone through some changes anyway in terms of who the committee members are.
Is there a Board of Selectmen on it now?
We think so.
He happens to be here.
He thinks he was tapped on the shoulder. And he was...
Okay. I was just curious, honestly. I didn't know, because I know it was Brian, so.
It used to be Brian, then it got put on Craig, and then when she took over as the representative.
Brian was on it.
Yes.
And then Craig, okay.
And then when she became the representative, then had to go to somebody else.
Okay.
And somehow I think it's
I guess
Mr.
the
Sullivan.
final thing on this was 2 roof jobs. One smaller than the other, and
This
some
is a big
hiccups,
roof.
but basically the roofs got done under budget. I think we're generally happy with the work.
And the roofs look nice.
And like I said, this one, we did not expect them to put in the more expensive material, which they did. So
Didn't pay for it.
I'm going to call it a
All right.
win.
On to the next superintendent goals. We talked about putting this on the agenda. That was one of the things that you guys wanted to bring up for this particular agenda. This also, when you take a look at Dr. Colley's goals that we accepted 2 weeks ago as his suggested goals for him, it also brings up the time frame that I was mentioning, where he is looking to, for some of his suggested goals, looking at some of the MCAS data. If that's something that we choose to add as a goal, it's going to affect, obviously, when we evaluate him and the timeline, because I don't know how we can evaluate in June when the testing results don't even get released until September. So I don't know if you guys want to make additions to goals, take any of these goals, table it until the next one when we have the aggregated one. But this was a request from 2 weeks ago.
These are goals for this year.
These are his
Yes.
suggested goals for
Right.
13 coming up.
Yeah, we
moving
could
forward.
look at, we could go
65
through
bullets.
these and.
There's this,
Michael.
Well, I think it makes sense to follow the process as outlined by DESE. They give a whole list of potential goals and want us to pare it down. I think
Well,
we had that workshop.
They give a list of evaluation items that you'd evaluate, not goals.
Not goals.
They don't set goals. They'll give you items that you use to evaluate.
And my contention is that there's a direct relationship between the goals you choose and the items you're going to evaluate on. So I suggest we follow the process as outlined by Department of Education, but also you've got a good point with these new dates not aligning. Perhaps we need to get some clarification when the Department of Education says a school committee can't look at the MCAS ahead of time, then maybe they have to change one of the dates, because
Well,
every superintendent gets evaluated on MCAS. I mean, that's just a
well,
given.
if the school committee would like to make a motion to submit a letter to the Department of Education stating our concerns exactly that, their dates, their evaluation dates are not aligning with the MCAS, the release of the MCAS data. And I know that's been a bone of contention for you, Michael. You've wanted those scores to be available to us sooner than we get them.
Yeah,
We know that
for
the
budget.
administration is getting them, but we know they're just not releasing them to us as public people.
And we're not the only committee, school committee in Massachusetts
We are
that's
not.
realizing that issue.
We are not. So if enough school committees can maybe make them aware of, hey,
So
when you
can
guys
we,
sat around the table, did any of you consider the fact that the MCAS data doesn't really match up with the evaluation process? So, yeah.
Just, I did get a chance to go and talk to, including the commissioner, on some of these issues a couple of weeks ago, and that did come up. One of the things, and again, sometimes you have to read between the lines because they can't come out and say something that they haven't really gotten approval to do yet. But our expectation is that when they switch to the new assessment process, that they will change not only the assessment process and the assessments to be used, but also the timing of their release of the data. So, for example, you may see the open response questions being done earlier in the year, because those are the ones that take a lot more time. So even if we had a June deadline and took the raw numbers that the state sends, they don't even send us that part of the data until end of July, no, middle of August, really, almost towards the end of August, which is why we're given some time to look at it in August before school starts so we can plan for the year, and then they release all of it together. But my expectation is that they will, one, do those parts earlier in the year so we get some results before June or maybe at June. That would make some sense to me. And the other part that you will probably be seeing, and I know the superintendents are a little bit on edge over this one, is that they will be expecting us to do a lot of the testing online on little computers like what you're holding on your tables right now, which will allow them, because it's uploaded directly to the state, you don't have to scan anything, you don't have to send anything back to them, it just goes up. The machines do all the work, we can have it back the next week. So eventually, I think that will change. I think these next few years, while they're transitioning to the new assessments, there's going to be some disconnect.
But until then, would it make sense for us to draft just a quick, hey?
Absolutely.
you know,
I mean, I did ask some of the other superintendents. They have worked with their school committees and they've changed the timeline of when the superintendent gets evaluated. So some of them are getting like a mid-year review, like in February, like it's in the contract now, based on the previous year data. That's why I wasn't thinking of doing evaluation of FY12 now, because we're just getting the FY12 data now. So by February, which would be the mid-year for a superintendent, that would be an appropriate thing to use, which is fine. But other superintendents are asking their school committees to kind of skip over some of the year and do evaluations in the early fall so that it matches the release of information. But that, I know, makes some school committees and some people there from MASC, where they're saying, that's kind of weird, because if you don't like what's happening and you don't want to keep the superintendent, now you're already in September, and now you're going to tell the superintendent, we want something else. It's a weird position to be put in. So we did, that was mentioned at that meeting. The commissioner was there. I'm hoping he heard it, but if you want to put it in writing,
Do we need a motion to that? Do you guys want to send off just a little,
Just do it.
friendly reminder to the Department of Ed, hey,
this is not working.
the new evaluation tool is wonderful, but your dates don't really align with your testing. Would be nice if, push the testing, get the testing in a little sooner.
In terms of the goals, I gave you 9 goals. The department doesn't recommend 9 goals. If you see some of them are highlighted, those are the ones that I felt were really more important than the others. But, again, it was a suggestion for this year going forward. I just wanted to start the conversation.
Okay, so.
Well, let's go over them.
Yeah, all right. Draft of superintendent's proposed FY13 goals. 1, develop a budget by February 1st, 2013 with the with the administration that targets a 2.5 increase for the ATM.
Yeah, on that, Dr. Colley, it's February 1st. I mean, that would be like our 5th, 6th, 7th revision of the budget, or we're going to start the process?
No, that would be like the one that we sent to the
So
town.
we really need to start that when?
Oh, I plan to start with the
next
principals this month.
2, develop a set of I'm sorry, Michael.
I just didn't know if we were going to.
You want to comment on one? Go right ahead.
Well,
We might as well make some.
I just think that particular goal is more of an area of responsibility. I don't see that. I mean, it's rescheduling things that we do, but to me, that's not a goal. As I looked at that.
Well, the 2.5%. I mean, the problem has been that over the last few years, we go from what everybody wants, and then we come up with one budget that's way up here, and then we start paring down. This year, we took everything out and put it to the side in warrant articles that ended up being overrides, that ended up being ballot questions. I'm trying to, if you put a goal of what your target is now, you can begin that discussion with and I'm not just saying this is my goal, I'm saying this is an agreed upon goal, school committee and superintendent. That would be the kind of starting point of the discussion with the buildings, the principals. Like, if we're going to stick to this goal, how do we do that? If we only have a 2.5% increase in our budgets, what does that look like in terms of proposals for budgets?
Doesn't that set you up for failure, though?
Well, I think
just to finish my comment on that, because then I do have to leave, so excuse me all. I believe that's part of the responsibility. Adjusting the budgetary process, to me, isn't a primary goal. We're talking about 2 to 4 goals, and I don't think a timely budget at a certain increase, because if we have a windfall of revenue for the town, we're going to want more than 2.5.
I actually agree with Mike that I don't know that it would be considered a goal. I think that would be an expectation.
Of your job description.
Regardless, by Mike. But I don't know if I would
you got
tag
9
it
more.
as a goal.
My concern is that, this school, Westport School Department Committee, whatever, been beat up so bad over the last few years that here we are as our goal to get what we're supposed to be getting anyway. I mean, really?
Yeah, I don't know that I would.
2.5?
Let's go through the rest of the meeting.
2.5, we just don't,
Yeah.
Whittle it
we
away.
just don't drown as quick, but we're on the water.
Number 2, develop a set of recommendations for school committee consideration on the development of a comprehensive capital improvement plan for the schools by the time the MSBA reopens the SOI proposal window. We don't have any idea when that is, right? It's not tomorrow.
But I don't want to wait until they open it to then spend
We should
3
be
or
ready
4
to go.
weeks.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep. I mean, that's a lot of work to do that. Now, that I would consider a goal because
And it includes the study that we were talking about.
maintain a system of public monthly communication in writing and in person through copies, public forums, newsletters, and the web.
You do that now, and you
And he's
should do that. I don't
maintaining.
see where that's a goal. I mean, I guess that would be an easy goal.
Establish a tier 1 to 3 system of positive behavior interventions pre-K through 4 and 9 through 12 by FY13 that reduces the number of students suspended or sent to the office by 5%.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I think this is your responsive classroom, correct? In different words?
At the high school, it's not that.
Okay.
If
I don't mind it being a goal, but when we've already set restrictions on you, I just don't want to see it set up for failure. If we said you could only spend 10% on responsive classroom and your positive behavior interventions, you're setting yourself up for failure if that's one of your goals, and we're not even giving you the money to do it.
there is more to it than that. We do have, for example, through the special ed department, we have a behavioral assistant that helps
That might
with
be a
that.
goal. I'm just saying, we've limited you budgetarily wise, that you can't spend so much money, but if this is a goal, and we're not giving you your tools to do it, I don't want to see you set up for failure by...
Well, one of the things that I want to be able to do with the staff, the administration, one is to keep track of the number of students that are not in the classroom, because if you're not in the classroom, you're not really learning. We haven't done a good job of tracking all those kids on a daily basis, on how much time do they spend out of the classroom when they do leave the classroom. So I'm trying to come up with some hard numbers that we can say to the staff at the building level, hey, whatever it is, responsive classroom, phone calls to the house, getting the behavioral assistant involved in that classroom, the psychologist, whatever. We need to reduce the number of kids that are out of the classroom for extended period of time, whether it be on a daily basis because they leave the classroom and go to the office, or whether it be because you keep suspending them or keeping them in in-school suspension and they're not in the regular classroom. That's what I'm heading for. Now, that means develop the baseline data. That's why I know we have some baseline data at the elementary school and the Macomber school and the high school that we can track. I mean, I would expand it to the middle school, but I'm not sure how much of that data do we have at this point to be able to track it.
Now, to sort of piggyback a little bit off of Eric's question, because, I mean, I think he just will have to figure out another way to do it if this becomes one of his goals and he doesn't have the money for that. However, another concern that, is this, two parts, is this an attainable goal?
I believe it can be.
Okay.
Obviously, I have to work through the people at the building level to get it
I
done.
understand
But
that.
if I get as a
You're
goal, I would
relying
expect them to.
You're relying on your administrators to do their job to basically attain your goals, and that's a hard
Absolutely.
thing to do. However, above and beyond that, you're also relying on the funding that you are getting from the town to attain a goal like this. And here's why I say that. And I'm only going to look at the high school. I'm not going to comment on the elementary school because you have a different animal down there. But at the high school level, I know through what I see, and I know through the discussions that we have, that yes, we're attacking some of our honors programs by adding AP classes, et cetera, but you know, and I know, and we all know, and anybody in the high school knows that we need to add more opportunity for those students that may be having trouble in the class. And I don't mean go to in-school suspension or go to the office. I mean, how do you keep them in the classroom? That means you need teachers. That means you need people. You need somebody other than the classroom teacher. So, am I right? How do you attain a goal like that when you are missing or lacking a program
Well,
other than an in-school suspension? Because to me, that's not.
I
it is
know.
effective.
Just tell your teachers, don't send anyone to the office.
But it's more than that. It's teaching the staff how to deal with students who may, be difficult to deal with.
Some kids just don't want to be there. And you're never, no matter what you do, whatever intervention you do, they're going to sit there and say,
But that's why I'm saying reduce the number of students suspended or sent to the office by 5%. I'm not saying 50% or 100%,
No.
because
So out
that's
of 100
never going to
kids, you're
happen.
talking 5.
Yeah. Like, if we had 50 suspensions last year, I want to see less than 50. Come on, let's work towards less, which forces you.
I think a memo would take care of that. I know if I was in charge, a memo would take care of that.
Well, a memo will take care of that, but somebody has to track it and make sure it does happen, which is what a goal is.
I mean, I personally think I like these goals. I love for you to be able to say, all right, we're going to decrease the number of kids that we're going to send to the office by this percent or whatever. But I worry about us creating goals for anybody, you, the administrative, anybody.
Trust me, the teachers are in the same spot thinking, oh my God, how do I create goals that I can beat?
When I don't even know that we have the adequate resources built into the district, because I know, you have your college prep class, which generally consists of 2 levels of kids. You've got those kids that are often being sent out of the classroom, and then you have those other kids that are really, truly trying to learn and are being disrupted, potentially by whatever, but they're just not ready for the honors programs. So they're in the college prep classes where they should be because they get a little bit more help from the teacher or whatnot. But I just worry because we don't have anything else. That's it.
We have brought in people to help out at the high school, and in specific some of the programs to the kids who are the most needy in this area. So we have put some things in place.
If you feel
it's one of on any goal that you set.
It's all
I know,
about expectations.
and that's my point. On any goal that you set, you have to push the envelope a little bit, or else it's not really a goal.
Dr. Carr, do we have kids that are thrown out of class every day?
Not for a long period of time. Some of them are what you would call the frequent flyers, but those are the ones
what's
that
a frequent flyer? Once a week getting sent to the office? More than once a week?
sometimes more than once a week for a period of time until we figure out what works for that kid.
That person should probably look for a new school. I mean, really?
It's honestly, it's a hard.
I'm not saying
kids just don't belong.
I'm not saying we don't have
kids don't belong.
Kids don't have issues, but really?
There are some that we end up not having in school because of that. It is true. Some of them do leave.
Kids just do not belong in school, and if you're going to disrupt 24 other kids because you have a constant problem.
Well, but you also have to take a look at what we have done with some of those kids, because you may have one that begins the year like that, and over time working with them, tracking the behavior, seeing what triggers it, and working with that student, you go from twice a week, once a week, once every other week, to maybe once a month or nothing at all. So by the end of the year, you've taken a kid that you could have sent off somewhere, and you've trained them, because this is about learning as well. Behavior is learned. It's not something. I mean, for some kids,
these kids if they're doing it at the high school, it's probably too late for them. I mean, don't we want to stop this behavior?
Some of them, if you find what the issue is behind the behavior, you may be able to cut it off at the knees and bring those kids back into being successful students that can participate
here. And here's
here.
where I go back to what we're not, and we're getting off just a little bit, but I feel very strongly that we should have a program here for students who don't thrive in a classroom setting. And by that I mean they may be the students that do well in a hands-on approach. They may want to be the kids that are the ones that were in shop when I was here, doing things, and we don't have, they just aren't going to do well when you tell them to sit in a chair and read or write.
The diamond won't accept them because they only take the top students, no discipline problems.
Now, I have approached that issue at the state level, and I have approached it.
But, I mean, if you feel
I
that
say
this
make
is,
that goal by 50%. It's 5%. I mean, really?
what are we looking at the elementary school?
I'll make it.
How many kids are actually being sent down to the office at the elementary school? We having a lot of kids down there?
I would say at least once a day, one kid ends up down there.
A lot of them.
Maybe a
Let's go.
different
All right.
classroom, maybe the
Onward-
same
onward
kid.
and-
Go back to work.
Onward and upward. You're going to work, I think?
Yes.
Sorry.
Number 5, train staff in the development and revision of units of study so that each staff either creates at least 2 new units of study or revises 2 units to align them with the state curriculum changes.
Now, how do we, you say that's your goal.
Mhm.
How do we see that you've attained that goal?
We have, from each of the buildings, a track of how many units are in each grade level and how many units are
So we can
complete.
verify.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah,
That's fine.
there's teams at the schools, I think actually, they made a presentation.
Yeah, the math, I know they all, math,
Right,
science.
they all came
yeah.
up and they said, this is where we at. So there's some system in place that tracks.
So
where
If
they're
if
at.
you remember,
That's what Glenn Kuchar said, you want to be able to see how you evaluate if one of your goals was evaluation of the administrative staff at the building levels, how do we know, unless we can see, and that was one of the gray areas, unless we can see that evaluation, how are we going to evaluate you whether you're a good evaluator or not?
right. In this one, if you remember, we used to have a goal that was like 20% of the units every year. The problem was that some of the disciplines, like for example, art, music, and PE, were having a harder time wrapping their heads around how do I create units for my area, in particularly those people who are working as a singleton. In other words, there's only one art person at the elementary school. It's a little bit more difficult rather than getting together with 5, 6 people in grade 1 and saying, hey, you take the units in social studies, you take the units in science, you take the units in ELA, you take the units in math. We come together and we've created a bunch of units that we can share. That person would have only themselves to, and they have a whole laundry list. So I'm saying 2 units, and it begins to create an expectation that each individual in the system will create units. You can't just say, well, the other people in the other disciplines or the other grade levels created units. That brought us to 20% for the whole building. I don't have to worry about it. So this kind of forces everybody to do some work.
Okay.
Implement the new educator supervision evaluation program so that all administrators are evaluated using the state rubrics and jointly developed goals that follow the school and district goals. Data gathered through weekly visits to schools, bi-weekly staff meetings, and other forums. Mid-year and end-of-the-year review will be used to track performance on goals and rubric indicator achievements.
Isn't that required by law already?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's the biggest change in education, I'd say, in the last 15, 20 years.
So is that really a goal, or is that just it's
Yeah,
by
I
law
don't
you
know
have to do
that
it.
I
I mean,
would-
if you don't do it, you're not going to be the superintendent.
I don't know
Obviously.
that I'd consider it a goal so much as what we have to do.
That's a requirement for the position.
70% of students reading at grade levels K through 5.
That I like.
What are they at now?
I would say if you just take a look at MCAS in grades 3 and 4, we're about 60. Obviously, in K through 5, we don't have MCAS for every grade level, so we'll use other things like Dibbles, Fontes and Pinnell reading levels, those kind of things to make sure. I don't want to wait till we get to 3rd grade to find out the kids are not reading at grade level. My expectation is if we get most of the kids reading on grade level, from grade level to grade level to grade level, by the time we get to 3rd grade, it's not a surprise. And again,
So
4th and
are we-
5th grade, MCAS doesn't tell you the whole reading piece. It tells you the whole ELA piece, which includes writing. That's why
So are we
Just
going to
talked
break
about
this
reading.
down? Because right now it just says them reading at grade level. Would we break this down as a beforehand so that we know the end of the year, this is what we're going to use to assess for K, this is what we'll use for 1, this is what we'll use for 2, in order to...
Well, this is one of those areas where, as we're doing this, we're trying to get at the building level and at the grade level level, what are we going to use? Because the state will require us to have build or district developed levels of measurement beyond the MCAS. So we have been talking about this amongst the administrators and even with the staff over the last year, 2 years, like what do we have to measure reading? I know we had the old reading series that didn't seem to correlate very well with what happened on the MCAS, so that's when we started looking at other things like the Dibbles and the Fountas and Pinnell scoring forms, that may end up being what we use, and at the same time we're trying to train staff on doing different ways of breaking up the kids to address the needs of those kids reading all the way from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade and hopefully beyond, but at least through 5th grade. So by the end of this year, I'm expecting at the building level that we will have specific measures that we've agreed to use to measure reading levels, and that 70% of
By
the
the end of
kids
2012,
by the end of this year, yes.
not the school year.
Well, this is the school year.
I'm trying to...
June 2013.
Okay. I was trying to get that clarification.
Dr. Hall, at the elementary school, we have that reading person in there now, right?
We have two reading people, or at least we need a reading people, and then we have a whole bunch of people in every grade level that everybody teaches reading. Why? Are you thinking?
No, I'm just that.
Yeah, we have a couple of people.
Somebody above and beyond what we had last year, right?
No, we have a math person now.
Oh, it's the math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quick, I know we have two other items on there, but one thing that seems to be missing, and I would hope that it would be part of it, I don't see any personal goals on bettering yourself, as in coursework, obtaining different, I know you just got your business manager certificate July 1st. That's a goal. I want to see self-development more than you put a lot of stress on other people obtaining your goals, rather than some self-improvement would be really nice.
Okay.
Well, that's the kind
Just
of
throwing it
stuff
out
he's
there.
looking for. Well, that's what he's looking
that's,
for. And I'd also like to add, and I know we didn't make comments during this evaluation process today. I have written comments on there, but if nobody's going to put the comments, it's fine. But one of the things that I know has been something that we've talked about a little bit is, and it's not a consistent basis, but from time to time, sometimes when you come to a meeting, we're looking for more information that we were kind of saying, well, we would have hoped you would have brought that. So usually you're pretty good about getting what we need, but sometimes there's stuff missing. So, I mean, I think maybe...
I don't think that's an evaluation. But
I'm talking about it as a goal.
Okay. Because I thought you were leading into what your response was on your...
No, I'm talking about it as a goal. Moving forward. No, I'm saying moving forward, as maybe even as a personal goal of sorts.
Okay.
She's trying to weave in what you put out.
Making sure that when you come to meetings, we do have all the documentation, that you have everything backing up whatever it is that you're telling us. If you're telling us X, Y, Z, show us why it's X, Y, Z. Not that we don't trust you, but we need to see it too. So whether that gets added in as a goal or not, I think making sure that all of the documentation follow-up is available to us. Timely has been good, but I think one other goal I would like to see, and I don't know how we would judge this, is, or if this even would be a goal, but improving communication within the schools, within the administrators, within the school committee. Not within the school committee, but to the school committee, right up the chain. I think communication is something that has gotten better, but I think it still needs a lot of tweaking, and there's a lot of, and it's, again, you're going to be relying on your administrators to help with that chain. But I think that's something that, whether, I mean, it's not a huge goal, but it's something that frustrates people when there is that lack of communication. They don't get the information. We saw it tonight, even with Michael, frustrated that he didn't remember whatever with the beam, knowing that you were on vacation. I mean, I'm just pointing out a couple of little things, but right on up the ladder.
Not finding out stuff from parents before we find it out from
that too.
Here.
and what is the procedure, and working on maybe making sure those procedures, if they're set in place, if we have a policy in place for a particular communication style, is it being followed? Which would be where you would be putting the pressure on the schools. Look, we talked about it last year with tardies. We found out that all the schools had different tardy rules. So this is just another one. Are we following that procedure? Is there procedure? If there's not procedure, then we need to look at it as a policy and maybe create something so that we do have procedure for that. Is there anything else that you guys want?
What are we doing with this now? Are we going to accept it as a work in progress? And
I would say we have given you some suggestions to add to it. We can accept it as a work in progress. We still need to sit down with you and talk about exactly what our evaluation, what we're going to look at, evaluate, which 65
out of those 65
things,
bullets, which 8 or 10,
God
12.
knows who wants to be evaluated on 65 different items.
You know, we did that with the teachers. We identified 12 items that to us were more important.
To break it down,
Right.
you know, to almost a sixth of what they're suggesting you can look at.
I can bring.
Workshop or something.
Yeah.
Well, basically, or we can do the rubric at the next school committee meeting, and you can review it before the school committee meeting and go, okay, here's the 10 that
We
I.
don't have a ton of other stuff on the, because that's going to be a lot of dialogue back and forth.
Good dialogue.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it's going to be very good for people to hear. I'd rather do it that way than in a workshop.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this, on these goals, like was stated earlier, a lot of these seem to be like day-to-day,
Well,
job of a superintendent.
Ultimately, he shouldn't
They're
have
all hard.
9 goals to be working on either.
No.
He's put more than would be the recommended. But I do think Eric's right. Some personal goals. I mean, I know you go to a lot of things as far as training and conferences and whatnot. But, I mean, take a look at, I don't know.
Second doctorate. Who knows?
It ain't gonna happen. But I can tell you that. Anybody who's had a doctorate knows not gonna happen.
Striving towards it. Anything.
Dr. Colley, that, number 9, the 90% of students growing at 5%, where do we stand now at?
Basically, what you want to see is all the students moving up on the scale. If you take kids who are needs improvement, you want to see them moving towards proficient.
No,
If you
that's,
got-
I know. Where are we now?
Percentage-wise.
We have never used this measure,
None.
so I would use where we are now.
What percentage is what he's asking?
That's what I'm saying. We want to be at 90% growing
Of the
at
students.
5%.
5%. In other words, when you get an MCAS score, and that's why I
I
start
understand the
with
measure,
grade
but
4.
where are we this year? What are we?
If you were to put a number on
I'm
this
just
year,
saying,
we had-
wherever those kids are this year,
Oh, he-
move them
yeah.
up 5%.
That one you can't give a number on. This one you could give a number on. 70% of students reading at grade level, but this one,
Right.
it's just saying if you have 100 students, 90 of them are going to grow up by 5%.
All right, so that
From
goal,
wherever
so you're
they
saying
are.
next year,
Right, from wherever they are.
5% of whatever they are this year.
Yes.
Right.
You start with
90% of
measure.
them. Because think about it, like
All right, so
you
then
mentioned,
what
there's
the
some
question
kids
then?
that don't want to
What
be
was that
I
here.
don't want to do it.
So I'm saying that 10%, I may not be able to help. Nobody may be able to help because they may have other issues that we need to deal with. But I'm saying if you have an MCAS score, they give you a raw score for each area, can we move them up? 90% of them,
So
can we
let me
move
ask
them
what
up
I think
5%?
Tony was trying to
Yeah, from
ask.
last year to this year, how
Did
do
we
that?
have 90% of
Because we can take
students?
the scores for this year and then track the
Backtrack.
students. I mean,
Did we have 90% of students? That's what he's asking.
I don't think we've ever done that
So have you
analysis.
even looked, I mean, what if it was 60% of those students? That would be a huge difference.
I don't think moving 90% of the students 5% is that difficult a
Okay,
goal.
hey,
Now,
I'm just
Just
It
telling
could be,
you a little-
because I
It's
can recall
okay.
Glenn Kuchar in the other room, your students are still in out-of-district placements. They're teaching them, you have no control over how they
I'm
teach
talking about
them.
the ones we have here. I'm not talking about those.
But the evaluation tool, if you guys recall that, had part of it, when you're saying your students, those are your students, and you have somebody else teaching them,
They got
and they
charged
go
to
into
us,
your
too.
percentage. So if you
Maybe
have
some of
Crystal
the
Springs or some other school
10%.
doing work for you,
They got charged to us.
they get charged to us, they're part of your student body.
For the MCAS numbers, but I think what he's talking about is looking at the
No,
kids
that says
individually.
MCAS.
That says MCAS.
No. What I'm saying is looking at the kids' individual MCASs, for the ones that are here.
Yeah,
And
so
those
that
students would
can't
get-
measure that.
But he had mentioned it's for all of his students. That's why it was a little bit of a
Can you just pull
Tough
out
area.
those students?
Yes.
You could.
in-district, like, don't,
Yeah.
I would recommend doing that.
Put in
making
district.
that in district.
because he had mentioned you have to consider all the students
not
out of
really fair
district.
to
but-
be
Yeah,
charged with the student
that would go
unit.
under the obvious
The state, when they rank you with MCAS, they include everybody that's
They
charged.
include all the kids out of district.
That's right.
That's right.
Right.
And
So
you're
we
right,
tried
some
to
of
make
it, some of
90%.
it's not fair, because you're gonna have no control
And
of
if
what
you
they
say
do out
90%,
there.
5%, they're going to put everybody into that.
I will just add, personally, I think, I like where we're talking about having more than one tool to evaluate them, because I'll be honest, judging by even just my own children, I don't feel that the MCAS
Here's the end of the
is
deal.
a really good assessment necessarily of how they are as a student.
That's in part why you also
I mean,
have
it gives you
number-
an idea. It gives you, a ballpark. But when I see even when I see what other students do, or a particular student I know at the middle school who would come from somewhere else, it's definitely not a judge of that student. So, I just don't know.
Guess the-
I like having more than one way to be able to assess the students, because I think that gives you a better overall view of, well, is that just a skewed, it's sort of like taking SAT scores and looking at only an SAT score and deciding whether that's a good student you want to have at that particular college. That's really not a fair assessment. But, getting more than one evaluatory tool, I think, is a better assessment. That's just... All right, let's move on.
Yes.
We will see this next time. I don't think Karen makes them long enough.
Makes what?
Karen didn't do anything. What did you do?
I didn't make the times on here long enough.
Oh.
She doesn't.
If you,
Oh, we're an hour off.
Approval of the minutes of Wednesday, September 19th, 2012.
So moved.
Mike and Eric weren't here, so it's just us.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Why?
Sorry, I'm hitting the back button and waiting. They're not the fastest, but they work. Approval of the minutes of Wednesday, September 8th, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yep, page 5. I think it was page 5. I got to get back to it again, where we speak of the SRO. It's actually page 5, second paragraph. Or wasn't it? Or it was further down, I'm sorry, it was letter F.
Yes.
It should say approval of attendance officer, not office. Slap your hand, Karen. Other than that,
you can't go
All right. All those in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? School committee business, correspondence. Did I have anything?
Can we X out of these? Good.
a couple of magazines.
Just the magazines, school planning and schools that learn. New business request.
Do we have I don't know if anyone has read the letter that was in our little,
I just got that.
are we going to plan that date?
We'll have to,
Okay.
but I got it when you
Okay.
guys got it.
Yeah, no,
so-
I just
Yeah.
read it for the first time.
Yep. The one in the envelope.
It was in the envelope that
Comments and statements from the public.
you stayed, you may as well comment.
I actually do have one thing. I was actually sent a message that is asking me to just mention that this, when Jason Pacheco was here, he neglected to mention that the sports awareness night at the Westport High School is on October 18th at 6 p.m. Mandatory MIAA meeting for parents of all athletes, all seasons. So I was asked to announce that by somebody that's still here.
At least we know we're live.
Was the videotape ever looked at with the buses? Do you remember
Yes.
the question?
Thank you for
It
bringing
was.
that up.
It was reviewed by,
Michelle looked at it.
Annette, from what she explained to me, when she viewed it, that actually took place during the budget subcommittee meeting. It was not part of the, you were
School
sitting in
committee
the
meeting.
audience.
Okay.
It was
The
just
comment was made during the budget subcommittee meeting with Tony and
within
Michael.
The school committee, remember when we?
Yeah.
Kind of had like a break.
So does that mean, though, that the decision that was made within the school committee was based on that information?
Not,
A subcommittee does not bind the school
no,
committee.
they're not a binding, same thing with policy.
But we made a decision on the information that was in the subcommittee meeting
But there was
with the
no-
impression that we were going to have K through 5 picked up, or K through 4 picked up door to door.
That's not what I came away, and I was there that entire meeting. I did not walk away
Okay.
from that meeting with that sense at all. I wasn't on stage, but I was in the
I
audience.
wasn't either, and I got the same impression she did. I just wanted to see if she wanted.
I have, both of my kids are in
That's her
elementary
baby?
school.
That's fine.
Michelle did look at both the meetings, just to make sure which one it was, and it was part of that subcommittee.
Okay.
Just for the record, I have 2 kids in the elementary school, and I knew from day one I was walking to the end of the street, so.
But I think that as a parent being at the meeting, I definitely would have said more about it had I had a different, and I think it was just perception. Sometimes we understand things differently, and I can accept that. So thank you for checking.
Yeah, I'm sure that was fun, watching those meetings.
Well, if she was there, she wouldn't have had to watch them.
Question about the special town meeting. I know we're not going to have a meeting before Monday.
Yeah. What about it?
I'm just thinking, do
Should we
want to set a
post it?
meeting? I don't know.
Is that what you're asking me? Should we post for Monday?
Yeah.
We
We
had,
probably should post for Monday in case all 5 of us end up
Right.
going to the selectmen's meeting on Monday night.
the FinCom last
I
night.
have CCD, so I won't be. Well, I actually might be there. It's right down there.
But regardless, even if
Right.
3 of us go,
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, the FinCom met last night. They took the suggested articles for the special town meeting that the school committee put together last week. They looked at them, but basically said they need to be going to the Board of Selectmen first, in particular because the money one will conflict with the amount of money going into the special town meeting and the other articles in there. So basically, they sent us back to Board of Selectmen. Am I kind of in the same ballpark? Which would be
Yes.
Monday.
I was there.
And I have some concerns with regard to the revolving, or whatever, that fund,
They did as well.
because
They were questioning whether that was the appropriate creation, whether whether a revolving account was the appropriate type of account to open.
and I think one of the suggestions is that it takes a 2/3 vote
A
to put it in,
stabilization.
and then to pull it out.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting as a new business item that we post a meeting for Monday in case people want to
didn't know
join in
that.
that conversation. Because
Shame on you.
No, which was my hesitation.
my guess,
I
school,
didn't know that information.
Board of Selectmen starts at 6 usually,
They
right?
start at 6, so
Yes.
we'll post that.
I was going to ask. So
That way we're covered.
that's why I'm thinking.
Just post.
Yep.
Can't hurt anything.
We're covered, and if 3 or more go, then at least we can,
Actually have a meeting and
right.
make some choices. Okay.
I have to put an agenda item.
We'll put discussion on the
Yeah.
Special town meeting article.
special time meeting articles.
But what would potentially be something that we would need to vote on, whether or not we would leave
You
the
may
articles
vote
out or pull
to, you
them?
may vote to amend them, you may vote to change them, you may vote to withdraw them, you may vote to pursue a different way of getting them on the special town meeting warrant. tons of things that could
clicking
come.
the heels, see if that works.
You could try that, but I don't think that requires a vote of school committee.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.